And with that, I'm going to get us started. Hello, everyone. My name is Hasina Moyudin. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion here at Peabody College. It is my pleasure to welcome you all for our Diversity and Inclusion preview event. We're thrilled to have you here today and hope that the speakers you hear will give you a sense of the programs and community you'll find here at Peabody College should you choose to pursue your graduate and professional studies with us. And as you hear from these different speakers, we'd also love to hear from you. So please engage in the chat to ask questions, share thoughts, and we also want you to know that it's also perfectly fine to leave your videos and mics off. We will be recording the session and you'll have it available to you. And also, if you need it, the closed caption feature is available. If you just click the More button and then go to the captions. And as we get started, I'd just like to take a quick minute to thank everyone who made today possible, including all of our amazing presenters, our students, our staff from the Dean's Office, as well as Kim Brazel, who is our Director of Graduate Admissions and Recruitment, Cassie Goodpasture, our Assistant Director of Enrollment Management and Student Services, and Brian Smokler, our Assistant Director of our Manager of Instructional Systems, who are all helping with our tech today. So if there's anything that you need, please feel free to reach out in the chat to let us know. And it's really been a team effort, and we are so lucky to have a dedicated team of caring human beings support the event today. And I'd like to kick us off by welcoming one of those amazing human beings, Catherine Loss, our Senior Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Professional Education and Associate Professor of the Practice in the Department of Leadership, Policy, and Organizations. Dean Loss.
Thank you, Dean Moyudin. It's wonderful to be here. Extending my warm greetings to all of you from Vanderbilt University's Peabody College. As Dean Moyudin indicated, I serve as a Senior Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Professional Education. I'm starting my 16th year here at Peabody College. And while I'm happy to welcome you this morning, it started out as a rainy morning here in Nashville, but there is a chill in the air and autumn is just around the corner, as all of our Zoom backdrop suggests, when the Vanderbilt campus explodes with color and comes to life. And so while we're unable to bring you to Peabody here today, we are so happy to bring Peabody to you to give you a better sense of our wonderful academic community. As Dean Moyudin indicated, a whole team here at Peabody has been hard at work to put together a meaningful program that we hope will give you a glimpse into what your future might look like as a Peabody student and as a member of our diverse and vibrant academic community. There's a lot I want to share with you, and I'll have a moment to talk with you in just a moment. But before I do that, there is someone very special I'd like you to meet. I'm very pleased to introduce to you Camilla Benbow, the Patricia and Rhodes Hart Dean at Peabody College. Dean Benbow is a distinguished and award-winning scholar, a visionary academic leader, who has advanced Peabody's core mission of teaching and research and discovery and service to the field since 1998, which, we're doing our math, 2023 marks her 25th year of leadership. So I'm so happy to introduce her, and I will turn it over to Dean Benbow right now.
Well, thank you, Catherine, for that truly nice introduction. Well, I am so pleased to see everyone here today, and I hope that you're going to have an enriching and wonderful day. You're going to learn a lot about all that we do in the area of diversity, and inclusion, and equity. But I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack this morning because I want to share with you our commitments in this area. EDI, or diversity and inclusion and equity, it's what we do every day at Peabody, every day. Our mission is to enhance the human condition through our work and our programs. And we live that mission and commitment, as I've said, every day. And we do that because we want to ensure that humankind thrives. And we apply that commitment to the way we work with our students, and that means you. We want you to thrive. And I just want to say that while I have lived this commitment to diversity and inclusion for 25 years, this commitment goes back decades and decades. It's not something new that we just invented recently. It is what defines us, who we are. Politics change, the culture around us change, the debates change, the issues change, but not our commitment to advancing humankind, every kind of humankind. And it is not something that changes our commitment to our students, to our diverse student body. So I hope you will come and join us and work with us and learn with us as we fulfill that mission so that society reflects the beauty of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Allow us, by coming here, to bring out your beauty, your potential. Each one of us, including you, can change the world for the better. Please come and join us, experience the Peabody difference, and see how we bring diversity and inclusion to life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Benbow, for those wonderful comments. So as Dean Benbow shared, at Peabody, we live our values, and there are some animating principles that guide the work that we do at Peabody. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about our professional programs and just a little bit of nomenclature here at Peabody. When we talk about our professional programs, we are talking about our master's and our EDD programs. I'm going to spend just the next 5 minutes or so just giving you a better sense of the work we do in our programs, the commitments that unite the work in our various programs, before I turn it over to my colleague, Associate Dean Jeanette Mancia-Martinez, who will talk about our 5 PhD programs, which we refer to as our graduate programs. So in my role, I have the great pleasure of working with program directors, faculty, and staff in our 5 academic departments. So there are 5 academic departments here at Peabody, and we work with over 1,000 students studying both here on our Peabody campus here in Nashville, as well as students studying online in a range of academic disciplines and fields that include, just to name a few, teacher education, educational policy and leadership, international education, special education, human development counseling, list goes on. And there are while there are diverse programs, and we'll turn to that slide in just a moment, there are some common principles and commitments that unite our work across these degree programs. And here are just a few. We seek to equip our students with knowledge and skills to create and deliver high quality academic experiences and to expand access and opportunities for all learners, both inside and outside of classroom settings. We are committed to providing educational experiences to apply your learning in a diverse range of professional contexts: schools, colleges and universities, community organizations, government agencies, the list goes on. And some of our programs, and I'll give you just a couple of examples, like our Learning Diversity and Urban Studies program, our Community Development and Action program, center on things like promoting community leadership, pursuing educational equity and justice, centering and bringing underrepresented voices into the public arena, into public spaces. Programs like our Learning and Design program prepare students to contribute and to create innovative and cutting edge and just and equitable learning environments for learners inside and outside of schools. And other programs like our EDD program, for example, prepare students to lead equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging across a range of institutional contexts. And our leading programs in special education, of course, committed to improving and expanding life chances for individuals with disabilities from birth through adulthood across the lifespan. If I could ask Brian, if you could advance the slide to the next, so that this is in the backdrop. So our guests here today can just give you a sense of the range of programs across our 5 departments. So what's behind me, or what's here on the slide, is the list of what we do and what we offer. But just another word on how we do it and how we approach the work we do at Peabody. We do it through the integration of research and practice, interdisciplinary research and practice. We work with and invite students to join us as whole persons, right? And who bring their whole selves to Peabody. We are certainly better for it. We allow students and promote very much the close collaboration of students and faculty working along a range of topics through inclusive intellectual community that fosters belonging, right? So these are the animating principles that define what we do every day and what we are committed to. So when I think about our core beliefs, about what you could call our North Star, it is this idea that through the application of ideas, through the application of cutting edge research, we can help to address some of society's greatest and most persistent challenges. That is our history, that is certainly our present, and that is the future we're trying to create through the work that we do in our programs. So a final word before I turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Mencia Martinez. As I was thinking about today's event and I was preparing my comments, I realized that over 3 decades ago, so 32 years if I'm counting, I was exactly where you are today. I was deciding about my next steps academically. I was deciding about how the institutions I would apply to, the many wonderful universities where I'd want to spend the next few years of my life. I wanted to be part of an academic community, I suspect like many of you, a community that would welcome me, that would challenge me intellectually, that would help me achieve my academic and professional goals. I am a first-generation college student, and so this sense of belonging was very much top of mind and at the top of my list, and thinking about where I would apply. And now, 30 years later, I am so proud to be a faculty member and an academic dean at an institution that's not unlike the ones I had known as a student, a place where I got to work with incredibly generous and super smart and dedicated faculty at the top of their fields who taught me so much, who taught me a lot about myself, who opened doors for me, and probably most importantly, believed in me when my own belief in myself was flagging. So to be at a place like that, to be at a place like Peabody, that is like the one I knew, it's for me, it's come full circle. And so I'm excited that you've joined us here this morning to learn a little bit more about what we do and about our vibrant intellectual community. So at this point, I will bid you farewell for the moment, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Associate Dean Jeanette Mencia Martinez, who will give you a better sense of the amazing work that we do across our 5 academic departments and our PhD programs. I wish you a wonderful day. I thank you for being with us, and we certainly look forward to the conversation. Have a great day.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Associate Dean Catherine Gavin Laws. My name is Jeanette Mencia Martinez, and I am the Associate Dean for the PhD program. And as was just noted at Vanderbilt Peabody, PhD is synonymous with graduate students. And so I welcome you all. I'm so happy that you were able to join us this morning. And what I plan to do in the next couple of minutes is give you a very brief overview of the PhD offerings. And hopefully you'll get a taste of what that's like. And some of these have already piqued your interest, or they will. As Dean Catherine Gavin Laws was talking, I thought, oh boy, I'm actually starting my 9th year at Peabody. And in some ways, I feel like I have just arrived. And I mean that in the best of ways. It's been an amazing experience to be part of Vanderbilt and Peabody College in particular. And so I hope that you all are seriously considering our college, and we look forward to answering any questions that you have, of course. So PhD program-wise,
there is so much that is going on. You see on this slide that a couple of things are bolded, and those are really the things that I want to highlight in terms of the truly cutting edge research that is happening across all of our 5 departments. And we also have an interdisciplinary educational neuroscience program. Currently, we have nearly 200 PhD students that are spread across our 5 departments. And the funding questions, we can get into those details later, but essentially all PhD students, and sometimes this is an unknown, receive full funding for up to 5 years of study. Many times students complete their PhD within 4 years, but the funding extends up to 5 years of study as needed. And there truly are a wide range of just about any methodology that you can think of across the 5 departments. And so there's a link to the Peabody PhD webpage that includes very useful information. And I strongly encourage you to take a look and ask any questions that you have. So Brian, if we can go to the next slide, please. Don't worry, I'm not going to read all of these slides to you. There's a lot of information here for you to take away. But the main thing I want to say, and I actually missed saying in the previous slide, across all of our PhD offerings, is that we really adhere to a student-faculty mentorship model. And it's more of an apprenticeship that is bi-directional. So it's not as though the faculty member is the person who knows everything and is just filling in an empty vessel. Quite the contrary. Our students come in with so much knowledge and so many experiences that us as faculty are continually learning from our students. So it's really an apprenticeship model, but in the true sense of being bi-directional. Okay, with that, one of our programs is under human and organizational development. And for the PhD program in particular, it is community research and action. There's so much that can be said about this program, but the highlight I wanted to make is that this PhD program is really anchored on training action researchers. And it's action researchers who are truly committed to promoting social justice. Brian, next slide, please. Our second PhD offering is under leadership, policy, and organization. And also so much for you to take away, and so much amazing work is happening with students and faculty. But in a nutshell, the LPO program is truly taking an interdisciplinary lens. And as such, there are a wide range of fields of study that are embedded within this program of study, such as economics, political science, and of course, international education. Next slide, please. Third, we have psychology and human development, and this program is jointly offered with the Department of Psychology in the College of Arts and Sciences. We can address more of those questions if you have them, but really the key focus is on addressing critical and pressing clinical, social, and of course, educational needs. Next slide. Fourth, out of the 5, we have the special ed department. That happens to be my academic home. And in special ed, I mean, the key aspect, right, is that we are really committed to supporting students with disability. And that includes students who have high incidence, low incidence, severe disabilities, and children in the early childhood stage as well. Next slide, please. And last, but certainly not least, is our teaching and learning program. And this program, you can see the different concentrations, but the key focus is really on current issues that are really at the crux of research and practice. And you probably hear that quite a lot, but the Department of Teaching and Learning really is preoccupied in the best sense of the word of really bridging that research and practice connection to make sure that every student can thrive academically and, you know, their overall well-being. So next slide, please. So that was a very quick and brief sampling of the 5 core academic programs offered at Peabody. If you have any questions at all, I will hope and look out for any emails that you might have. I'm also going to do a session on PhD, building a strong PhD application momentarily. So again, thank you so much for being with us this morning. I hope that you learn a lot and that you have a lot of questions for us. And with that, I will turn it over to Dean Woyuden. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. That was wonderful. And I know we've gotten just a snapshot of both our master's, EDD, PhD programs, but we do have an upcoming fall preview where you can dig deeper into all of the PhD programs, all of the master's and EDD programs, and get much more of an in-depth feel for our programs. And I've seen in the chat that some of you are interested in community research and action, which is actually happens to be the program I graduated from. So I'm absolutely happy to touch base and talk to any of you who want to kind of have that chat. Fall preview is the week of 9th through 13th. And I think we'll have some more information about October 9th through 13th, and we will have some more information. And we've talked a lot about Peabody, but we'd love to hear more about you. So we would love for you, if you would be willing to share your name, pronouns if you'd like, and where you're joining from, and what's a book, movie, podcast, or other work that has been transformational for you. And I know, I think for us, I love to kind of hear and get that suggestion list. So I would love to hear kind of some of the thoughts and recommendations that you guys might have, what's been important to you. And I'd invite my friends in the dean's office to kind of help me go through the chat and kind of maybe lift some of these up. And also welcome any of you who would like to unmute yourselves and share a little bit. I see already some great suggestions and amazing books here. Would love to hear thoughts. Yeah, Melina. Please correct my pronunciation.
Yeah, you had it right the first time, Melina. Thank you.
Melina. Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melina Swinton. My pronouns are she, her, and I am joining from Raleigh, North Carolina. And I think one of the things I want to lift up as I would say a favorite in the last 4 years has been the Throughline podcast. I love it's on NPR, and I love how the journalists kind of weave together history with current challenges, political challenges that we're having, and it creates a lot of really interesting comparisons so that we can maybe learn things from the past.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else would like to share? I see some great recommendations and some things that I really love. All About Love is such a beautiful, let's see, Esteban.
Hi, everyone. My name is Esteban Molina. Pronouns are he, him. Joined in from my classroom, just got out of class, so on lunch break, from Boston, Massachusetts. One of the probably most influential podcasts that I listen to like religiously, and I've probably listened to episodes multiple times, is Freakonomics. It just gives me a good broad sense of like things that necessarily I wouldn't seek out on my own. And it allows me to kind of think about things in a way through like psychology and behavioral economics, which is just really fascinating to me. So highly recommend it. They've got a lot on education if anybody's interested in like some of the earlier episodes, but yeah, so Freakonomics is highly recommended.
Thanks so much. I love that. Hosen, and tell me if I said that right.
Hi, my name is Jolson. Very close, very close. My name is Jolson Rodriguez. I use Heap series as well as L, and I'm joining from right outside of Boston, Mass. So I know there's a couple of us here. That's exciting. I definitely want to uplift this book I've read in undergrad. It's called Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, and he writes a lot about just a lot of the issues that we still face in higher education, and sort of that's what led my inspiration and just passion for wanting to sort of change the system from within. But I definitely recommend it. I'll also put it in the chat as well. But that's what I want to shout out. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact there's some things that I've read and it is fantastic and I love, but also I feel like there's so many new things that I need to dive into and get a chance to explore. So I appreciate that. Samira, Cassie, I don't know if you guys have picked up from the chat things that you'd like to uplift.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Samira. I am the graduate assistant for the EDI office, and I've seen a lot of books just about like either in enjoyment of like Fault in Our Stars up until like Minority Leaders from Stacey Abrams, which I know is also a great book. So just seeing lots of range and appreciate everyone for sharing as well.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
Good morning. My name is Cameron McGriff. My pronouns are he, him. I'm joining from Dallas, Texas. Spent some time on the East Coast of New York and in New Orleans and Houston. And the show that is one of my North Stars that I remember watching when I was 8 years old is Star Trek: The Next Generation, because it just showed of like a future where people were doing things in their life that uplifted them and humanity in this post-poverty, still a little bit of war, but primarily post-poverty world. So that's one of my North Stars that I still like to look at every once in a while. At Jean-Luc Picard and Geordi LaForge, also Mr. Reading Rainbow. So that's one of my my favorite ones to get back to.
Love that. And speaking of LeVar Burton, one of the things that we have been doing is this ban book initiative to talk about kind of the impact of banning books and what that does to our students and communities. And LeVar Burton has been just a huge advocate for thinking about how do we make sure students and communities are able to access the books that represent their identities and experiences. And so thank you for uplifting that. I love that. That is both. I love the kind of Star Trek connection as well as the LeVar Burton connection. So thank you for sharing. Yuyan.
So hi everyone. My name is Yuyan. I'm joining from China. I'm really glad to be here, and this session so far very informative. So for me, I'm recently doing a study about death and dying. So I've been collecting a lot of media about death and dying. So I really recommend this movie called The Fault in Our Stars. So this is a movie from 2014, I think, but I think it's very influential in the way that it kind of redefines my perspective about death-related attitudes and also the coping with death. And in China, death education is not actually very popularized. So I do think in the future, it will change. Yes, and that's all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing that. And I love kind of this range of different experiences and different genres that have been highlighted in this space. So thank you all for sharing. Please keep it coming. We really appreciate it. And also please kind of continue to use the chat to ask questions, to connect with us and engage with us. And with that, we're actually going to shift a little bit. So you've heard a little bit about our programs. Now we want to tell you about some of the offices that we have here at Peabody that are going to support you and through your time here. We're going to start with my office, the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and actually want to start with a video of our Associate Dean, Dr. Nicole Joseph, who could not be here today, but really wanted to send you a welcome. So Brian, could you help us with that video?
Hello, my name is Dr. Nicole Joseph. I am the Associate Dean for the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Office. I'm also an Associate Professor of Mathematics Education in the Department of Teaching and Learning. Greetings from our office, and I just want to share a little bit about what we do. So our mission is really to think together, to co-create ideas around what equity, diversity, and inclusion is. We have student-facing programming, and we have faculty-facing programming, and we also have staff-facing programming. So in terms of the students, there's lots of opportunities for students to engage in different activities where they can elevate their voices about different issues and concerns, but they also get to bring ideas and solutions about ways to engage in equity, diversity, and inclusion. Our faculty are now engaging in a professional learning community that we are leading. It's really exciting because we have Peabody faculty coming together to think about how do we engage in these issues? How do we develop transformative learning environments where students feel like they belong? And we're also working with our staff to really bring out their voices around issues and concerns as well. We're not perfect, but what I will tell you is that we have committed resources, time, effort. We have an incredible dean that is behind us 100%. And we really hope that you choose to come to Peabody. You will not regret it. And with that, thank you.
So Dean Joseph is just an amazing person to work with, and very grateful to have her leadership in this space. As I mentioned, I am the assistant dean of the office, and with us we have Samira Tunks, who is our graduate assistant. Excited to have her work with us as well. As I mentioned, I did graduate from the Community Research and Action Program here at Peabody College. You'll find a lot of us here, right? Like the fact that we studied at Peabody and then came back and tried to make our careers here, I think is just a testament to the communities that are being built in the spaces that are available to all of us. And happy to chat further about that if people are interested. But also, just wanted to kind of highlight the fact that that piece, that community building piece, has been really integral to a lot of our experiences here at Peabody. So next slide. So our mission here is really to co-create an equitable, inclusive culture to ensure that all students, faculty, and staff feel welcome, supported, and part of the Peabody community. We really want to emphasize that co-creation piece, right? Because each of us comes with our own experiences, our own skills, our own ways of thinking about issues, and we come together as a culture. So we want to build that together. We want to make sure people's voices are heard, that they feel seen in the spaces that they're in, that there is this sense of community and belonging. And we need to think about how can we do that through critical and humanizing processes that look at our systems, that look at the ways in which we do things to make them more equitable and inclusive for everyone, so that everyone has the opportunity to thrive here. One of the things that Dean Joseph has said to me that I really love is just like, how much joy, then how much she loves being in this space. And because sometimes it can be hard to be in a predominantly white space when you don't share that identity. But she has found ways to navigate that, to think about what resources and supports that really fill her heart and her bucket. And she brings that to the spaces and work that we do. And we hope to bring that to the students, faculty, and staff that we work with at Peabody College, and think about how do we build that culture and that community that really supports that sense of belonging and inclusion. Next slide. And as Dean Joseph mentioned, we do this in a number of ways. That community building piece, trying to make sure that there are places and spaces where we can come together and have conversations. Sometimes it's not those classroom things that we remember. We remember those deep conversations with peers, those deep conversations with faculty and staff about something that we care about. And so where do we find places and spaces to do that? A couple of things that we do are things like narrative circles, which is a place to kind of think about our multi-storied selves and how do we kind of share that with other people in our lives. We also have a program called Faculty FaceTime, which was actually born from student input in terms of where do we get to learn about faculty, where do we get to hear their stories, learn how they got to where they are? So Faculty FaceTime was born. And that kind of comes to our next point of amplifying student voice, making sure that we're always intentionally listening to students at Peabody, that we are hearing their voices, that we are hearing their experiences, and that we are addressing both the challenges and opportunities that they see in the space. So things like student town halls, listening sessions, lunch and learn opportunities, where we really get to hear from students and their experiences and what they hope to see in the space. Of course, that means providing programming and resources to make sure that all students, faculty, and staff have what they need to really build their capacity and thrive in the places that are here at Peabody. And as Dr. Joseph mentioned, that idea of building faculty and staff capacity to address issues of equity and inclusion are really important for us. And we have kind of created this Peabody learning community to continuously have those conversations. And if we could go to the next slide. What Dr. Joseph was talking about is this transforming practice learning community. So these faculty who are really invested in thinking about, how do I create inclusive classroom spaces? How do I make sure that I am creating assignments that reach a variety of learners? How am I creating community both inside and outside the classroom? And so these are some of the ways in which we have been working with faculty and staff to think about issues of equity and inclusion. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Samira. And I think she's going to the next slide.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'll be touching on a few of our upcoming and ongoing semester events, one being Faculty FaceTime. Faculty FaceTime, again, is an event where students, faculty, and staff can come together and learn more about each other. And so we're asking faculty about, again, their journey, their favorite activities, and having more of the interpersonal connection with them that we might not be able to do during their class time. And so this has been an informal space where students can feel comfortable coming to their professor as like a fellow or another person, and really sharing that space together and having a space to connect with them on another level. And so 2 weeks from today, we'll have our October Faculty FaceTime on October 13th during lunch. So feel free to bring your lunch with you, and a lot of questions to ask Professor Mark Chen and Professor Richard Walsh about their journey and what they do in the Department of Leadership, Policy, and Organization. Even if this is not a program or a department that you're interested in, feel free to just come and check it out and see what Faculty FaceTime is all about. And the QR code on the screen will lead you to the RSVP. So we hope that you'll fill that out and let us know that you'll be there. And this will be held on Zoom. And even though we're in kind of the Zoom world, we hope to bring lots of positive and fun energy and hear more from you, and see what Professor Chen and Professor Walsh have to say about their journey here at Peabody. And then on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about the Vanderbilt Identity Center. So each of these centers are where students can go and utilize to build more of a community and find a space where they see fit. And so in these different centers that host events that you can attend, and they add to the inclusive community and culture that exists at Peabody. And so on campus, we have the Association for Latin American Students, the Bishop Joseph Johnson Black Cultural Center, International Student and Scholar Services, LGBTQI Life, the Cunningham Women's Center, Office of Religious and Spiritual Life, and Student Center for Social Justice and Identity. So a large range. We hope that you can find one of these spaces to also go and enjoy and meet other people and build that community on campus. And then on the next slide, I hope that you all will follow us on our social media. I'm a little biased because I run it, but I really love the content that we post. We post very interactive materials, including we have like student takeovers and posts where you can ask us questions or comment and see what you would like to see from our office. So we are on Facebook, Instagram, and occasionally Twitter. So at our handle at EDI Peabody, feel free to connect with us, ask us any questions, and stay tuned for our future events that we'll have going on.
Samira really does an amazing job. We are so
Thank
lucky.
you.
And with that, we are excited to turn it over to Eliza Blades with the Office of Student Engagement and Wellbeing.
Thank you, Hasina. Thank you, Samira. Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you this morning. Well, for me, it's morning. I recognize that for many folks, all different time zones are reflected in this pool of people. And so I'm just very grateful to be spending time with you. My name is Eliza Blades. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Assistant Director for the Office of Student Engagement and Wellbeing. And I also make up a team of Megan Mundy. She teaches in the Human Organizational Development department. She is also the Assistant Dean for Student Engagement and Wellbeing. And then we also have a wonderful graduate assistant. Her name's Cassie Kaufman, and she's in the Human Development Counseling program. So if anyone's ever interested in that program, please feel free. We've got our contact information at the end of this presentation. But we're the Office of Student Engagement and Wellbeing. Like I said, we focus on Peabody. So we focus on undergraduate students, graduate students, master's students, PhD students, professional students. We also have so much programming that we do throughout the fall as a way of being able to be a connector. I think if you have a takeaway of like, what's the quick way to describe our office, you can kind of think of us as a community hub, a place of recognizing that higher ed, I'm sure y'all know, is full of lots of different resources, and it's hard to keep track of all of them. So if you're looking for ways to get connected on campus, if you have a need that isn't being met, we hope that we are your first stop in figuring out where to go. So with that, I'll go to our next slide and launch into, we wouldn't be the Office of Student Engagement without a bit of an engagement activity. So Brian, if we could please go to the next slide. Ruby. All right, so I wanted to start with this quote. It grounds a lot of the programming that we do. And it's from Diana Chapman Walsh. So I'm gonna read it aloud for folks. What kind of world could we create together on this earth if we were able to hear one another from our deepest yearnings and our most heartfelt concerns and dreams? What if we could sit together in circles of honesty and trust, sit in stillness, welcome silence, be patient, discover wonder and mutual gratitude, learn together, and gradually build new confidence in our ability to create spaces in which to hear and speak our unique stories and find our common truths? What if we could learn to listen and let our lives speak? I love this quote because lots of reasons, but I'm sure you've continuously heard this word of co-creating. Everyone's kind of talking about it. And I think that's one of the things that keeps me at Peabody is the recognition that higher education is a place that is flawed and it is not perfect. And in so many ways, each one of the people who walks through its doors is making an impact, whether it's being acknowledged or not. But I think there's so much beauty that comes with the intentionality of being able to co-create learning spaces, recognizing that each one of you brings all sorts of expertise and lived experiences that is just as valid as all the things that we're learning together in classrooms. It's all important, and it's all going to contribute to whatever we design together for the education of the future and of what is now. So with that, I want to move to our question on the next slide. And I invite you to engage in the chat, to just think about what kind of world do you hope to create? It can be a word, it could be an image, anything you might want to share. Also, I invite you in the chat, but if we've got some brave souls and some interested folks who might want to come off mute and share, I certainly welcome it.
A diverse world, I guess, if you will, a world that is respecting of the fact that humans are extremely diverse, and as well as a safe one, a world where people can be themselves, children can be safe, stuff like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Contentment, safe, respectful. That's being shared in the chat as well. A unified world. One that provides opportunity for all people. One full of inclusivity and respect of all cultures. A world that embraces diversity and preaches equality for all. Collaborative, full of dialogue and non-siloed. A world that understands and embraces complexity and is willing to put in the effort to advance change based on that grounding principle. Sustainable, fulfilling, and equitable. One where people are empathetic about others, understanding and respectful of differences. Keep them coming. Thank you so much for sharing these. You know, I know many of you maybe have already started thinking about your applications or considering writing them now. And I know when, so I'm also an EDD student. I'll be on the panel a little bit later. And I remember when I was writing my application, yeah, I thought about these a lot. I thought about this question a lot of why am I pursuing the degree that I'm pursuing? And in the Office of Student Engagement and Wellbeing, we hope to be a place that can serve as a reminder. We do lots of different reflection activities. We recognize and function deeply on the idea that we are whole persons, and there are so many things that bring us to this work. And we believe that our work is deepened when we're able to really center on what motivates us, what drives us, and that we're a part of communities that can enrich us and support us to be able to do this work. So with that, I'm going to transition us to tell you just a bit more about what our office does. So next slide, please. So our mission is to promote engagement and holistic well-being for the Peabody community through meaningful co-curricular programming and intentional community building. I always like to explain the photos that are present. So this photo is of folks on a stage. The folks represented are actually all the folks that you're going to be seeing and listening to this morning. We all work together. This is a photo actually from just a month ago of all of us at orientation. One of the things that our office does is help to plan and execute all of orientation. So if you do decide to come here, which I hope you will, we'll be the office that helps orient you, welcome you. Hopefully we'll be a space that, that can welcome you well and orient you to all the resources. So next slide, please. All right, so this is our holistic engagement compass. So I talked before about how we have holistic programming, and this is the framework that we use to really design the programming that we do, whether it's lecture series, panels, all sorts of programming. And these are the different dimensions that we think about when we think about how we might have students engaging with us. So next slide, please. One thing I really want to highlight for y'all are our student organizations. So this is a big part of what our office does, is supporting student organizations here at Peabody. All of them are student-led and student-initiated. And our office is the office that helps advise, support them, help navigate some of the policies and red tape that can come with trying to organize and book spaces and do things on campuses. So I invite you to take a look there. I do just want to highlight again the photos. So the top photo is actually the former leadership of the Peabody Coalition for Black Graduates. They did a Wakanda Forever showing when the movie came out. And so they gave away free tickets and invited people to come. And it was a great event. And then the one below is Plaza. This was a fiesta that they threw to just help welcome new students and any folks who identify as Hispanic or Latinx. They wanted folks to be able to gather. So they're the Peabody Latinx Alumni Student Association, PLASA. And all of these organizations are run and supported specifically for master's and PhD students, so in case you had a question about that. Next slide, please. That's right, Lydia's on this call. Okay, cool. You'll hear from Lydia later. Lydia is the president of Plaza. So you'll hear from her in just a second for Peabody Career Services. So I do want to also highlight here that we have a monthly newsletter. The next issue is about to go out, and our October feature is going to be Samira. We have a student section, a student voice section in our monthly newsletter. So if you scan that QR code, you can sign up ahead of time and you can see all the events that we've got going on in October and all the other kinds of like resources and things that our folks are sharing with us in Peabody Space. And so with that, next slide. Thanks, Brian. So again, that's our contact information. I really invite you to reach out. I chose this specific Instagram photo because that's our office. If you walk up those doors, so if you are about to take a tour on campus, or it's also just helpful to visualize, that's our office. Walk up those doors. Our office is located right when you walk in. We also get to share it with Hasina and Samira, as well as Wendy Wu, who you'll hear from a little bit later from PISA. And pretty much all the administrative offices that support you at Peabody they're in that building. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to talking with you later. If you have any questions in the chat, feel free to send me a direct message or anything like that. But thanks again for your time, and I hope to see you soon.
And with that, I think we're going to turn it over to our career services. So,
awesome. Thank you. It's great to see everybody out this morning, and I really appreciate you coming in to learn a little bit more about Peabody and what we do, and if this might be the next home for you. Something that's hugely near and dear to some people's hearts are the careers and what you're going to do afterwards. So, and we take your success very seriously, and actually our success is inextricably tied to your success and our double bottom line of outcomes as far as employment and your satisfaction with the process. And thankfully, it's not just me. We have a phenomenal team of Danielle Lewis, Associate Director, that works with also works with directly with students, and then Lydia Rodriguez, who's our graduate assistant that works very focused on the kind of professional students that are coming through the program. And so maybe next slide, if you would, Brian. And right now, I feel like your story and starting to hear a little bit of your stories, and they sound pretty phenomenal and would love to hear more. But believe very much that we need to understand backwards. Think about what your story's coming from, the factors that are driving you, your passions, your unique skills, abilities, and talents. And Danielle and I are sitting down with every single student coming into the program. Last year, Peabody Career Services had 1,035 appointments with students, multiple appointments with people, but to really think about, what is your story and how does that start to work into your career, and find ways to meaningfully express this passion that you have and these unique skills that you have. And we're also very excited about doing that. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about that, but we'll also have a way, if you want to meet with us and talk just a little bit more about what how you might fit in at Peabody and what you might be doing after Peabody, we invite you to meet with us and reach out individually, and we'd enjoy talking to you. So I'm going to turn it over to Danielle Lewis and for slide number 3 here.
Thank you, Jeff. It's an honor to be with you all this morning or wherever you're located in the world. But I'm Danielle Lewis, an Associate Director of Career Services. I wanted to preface our slides with talking about the intersection of career and identity for our D&I event today. So we are committed to helping explore the intersection of your identity and career, and we'll outline our programs and services momentarily that can help you do so. But it is important for us to talk about in the career context and what it means for having your salient identity show up in the workplace, and understanding the values that are most important for you, and understanding how these identities here are connected to your future job and overall career development. So in some of these identities, we also recognize that students from underrepresented backgrounds may be challenged by inequities in their job search and in their work environment. For example, we all are aware of the gender pay gaps that exist among many industries. We also understand that employees, BIPOC employees particularly, are underrepresented at every level of the workplace, or how ableism can show up at work and the perceptions of one's ability to do their job, among many other examples. But we are so excited to work with you to talk about how these identities impact your career decision-making, and most importantly, empower you to find career exploration options where you can feel accepted as your authentic self at work. We've also compiled career and professional development resources that are available on our website for several identity-based groups. Next slide, please. All right, so we will now get into what we offer in our office and what you can expect from us from a staff standpoint. So our 3 pillars in our office are identity, build, and connect in the ways that we serve you all. And we'll talk about those more in depth here. But in a broad overview, in this identify portion, we work closely with each of you to examine your career goals. Jeff and I pride ourselves on maintaining our relationships with individual students and really remembering the most important details of what they're looking for in their job search, internship search, and really what their ultimate goals are during their time at Peabody. And so as part of that, we will work with you to identify skills and competencies. Maybe you've come into the program where you feel like you have expertise in one area, but want to explore through your classes other ways to further develop those skills. In this build piece here, we want you to build your network at Peabody. You'll hear us and many of our colleagues talk about the amazing alumni network that Vanderbilt and Peabody has, and we encourage you to utilize that. So building professional presence online through LinkedIn, but of course, building your own application materials, we support you in that process as well. And then lastly, the connection piece. So we talk about alumni, yes, but we also support you in getting connected with employers. We have amazing relationships with employers locally in Nashville, throughout the state of Tennessee, nationally and internationally. And we are proud of those relationships because, of course, they lead to internship offers, full-time roles, but they also are really insightful in advice that they share with you and wish to give back. And we'll talk about example programs of which they do here in the next slide. Brian, if you can advance, please. Thank you. In the Identify Your Career Path, so these graphics that we have represented pretty much capture what we do day to day. So you can see Jeff meeting there with the students. Right now, we're right in the middle of back-to-back meetings with our primarily our first year students. And we prioritize that through proactive outreach so we can have a chance to meet with you and really tailor and personalize your goals during your time at Peabody. And with that, of course, articulating your strengths and your talents to help you then get to the next stage in your career and what your goals may be. Next slide, please. In the Build Your Pitch, these graphics here represent a couple of events. So the first photo that you see are students talking to employers and what we call an interview relay. So this is where alumni and employers come to campus and facilitate mock interviews with students. And I describe this as an event with dual purpose where everyone wins. So the students obtain that interview preparation experience, but many times too, it doubles as a networking event because the employers may be hiring for internship or full-time roles. And if you can have a conversation with them early on in the process, it can just really help expedite their hiring needs and their onboarding process. And so that's why I consider it a win-win in terms of the duality that the interview relay represents. But of course, in the feedback that they give to you, you can gather tips on how to differentiate yourself in the application process, how to stand out as a competitive applicant, and receive feedback on the spot. Next slide, please. And then lastly, getting connected with employers. So there's a few networking events that we have throughout the year, particularly our career fair, which is happening next week, our K through 12 education career fair. And that is just a great way to get connected with employers who are hiring locally and nationally for some incredible opportunities in the education sector. Lydia will talk a little bit more about our LinkedIn groups momentarily, but needless to say, through a variety of different means, we can support your career journey throughout campus. So we'll now transition into evidence of how we've been able to successfully support students in their job placements after graduation. Next slide, please.
Show me the numbers. I just dropped them in the chat so you can look a little bit closer at our annual report that talks about, again, that double bottom line. But some of that you might be particularly interested in. Had 340 graduates, 97% successfully employed or launched at graduate school by September 30th. And we keep working with students until they, find that employment. And we also are very proactive in how we reach out. We know everybody every now and then, you get a couple of no's. We don't want you to change things up. We want you to stay on course and find a way to get more interviews and then get to those job offers that you're interested in. Next slide, please. 57% of graduates launch their career in Tennessee. You may not be coming in thinking that you're going to do that, which a majority of our students don't, but you come out and you meet great mentors, fun city, you make great friends, and people end up landing here. However, we can launch you back into, I heard, Boston, Massachusetts. So next slide, please. Of the students that don't land in Middle Tennessee, mainly Nashville area, we have a national spread, mainly through our alumni network, and we work with you closely. I really enjoy, and I know Danielle does too, that long distance job search and finding ways to help you be effective with that. And then next slide, please. And even have a little bit of an international and remote kind of thought in there too. So I want you to know that there is that kind of that global spread of the Vanderbilt network, and we can help you effectively tap into that. Then finally going to the next slide, kind of just a couple of cases. And this is a Drew Alaya, and really enjoyed working with her. And she came in, just worked in Hasina's office and had wonderful mentoring there. Yes, she was definitely wonderful. And just really, she came in very passionate about coming in and making a difference, and was able to land at the Cornell Women's Resources Center. And so did that long distance job search and worked with her on that, and really enjoyed that. Next slide, please. And then special education, kind of with for our both students going into the teaching area, but also kind of going into that behavior analysis, behavior technician area. So finding ways to help people land, and worked with Sierra to she came in pretty passionate about being a behavior analyst and working with kids and their families, and was able to land with Lighthouse Kids, and kind of happy with that result. So I think I'm turning it. I know we're maybe a little closing in on time, so I want to turn it back over to Danielle.
Thank you. Next slide, please. And just to quickly say a couple sentences about some of my students. So Sunny was an education policy student, had an internship with Education Trust, was then promoted to a full-time policy analyst role. He's a great person to get connected with for those looking for ways to obtain internships locally and transition to a full-time role. Next slide, please. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight Tiffany, because we talk a lot about full-time jobs, but many of our students pursue PhDs after their time at Peabody. And Tiffany is a great example of that through the Quantitative Methods program. Clinical psychology is one of the most competitive programs in the United States. And so we're particularly proud of her success as she just started her program at Arizona State. Next slide, please.
All right, everyone. So my name is Lydia Rodriguez. I'm the graduate assistant for Peabody Career Services. I'm going to talk about our LinkedIn groups really quickly because that is what I help manage. So we have a main career group on LinkedIn for all students, but then we also have individual groups for various programs. So for example, I'm in a higher ed program, so we have a higher ed LinkedIn group. And that's the main way that we share jobs and graduate assistantship opportunities with students and alumni. And you have access to those groups after you graduate as well. So you could be 10 years post Peabody looking for new roles and still able to access the jobs and opportunities that individuals are sharing with Peabody students. And we have employers who absolutely love Peabody graduates and students. They reach out to us all the time and say, you know, we had our assistant director is a Peabody grad, and we would love to have more graduates come and work at our organization. So we have a really great reputation with employers, and they really love to recruit Peabody students. Next slide. All right, so I think that is us wrapping up and moving on to the next section, but please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and feel free to follow us on social media. Our Instagram is Peabody Career Services, and we update our social media with events and tips and tricks and all sorts of fun information. And I'll see if Jeff and Danielle have anything they want to add to close us out. All righty.
Again, thank you for, I was going to say, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, I know we take your success very seriously and would love to be meeting with you individually next fall, and hope you choose Peabody.
Thank you guys so much. And we're turning it over to Wendy Wu.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Hope you stay safe and enjoying the beautiful weather. Nashville actually entered in a pretty season now. I think like a lot of us are really enjoying it for sure. If you are ever coming to Peabody in Nashville around this fall season, hopefully you can come out and then really enjoying that beautiful scene here. My name is Yu Wu. I'm originally from China. I'll also go by Wendy because my first name is pretty hard to pronounce. Well, it's great to see everybody here. And I have a graduate assistant, Holly Deshwani, will be joining us later for the student panel. I'm here to representing the Peabody International Students and Fair, aka PISA office. Next slide, please. Okay, for our office, basically, I would like to highlight the two different approach as well as the focus for this office. One is the global engagement. The other one is advocacy and support for the international students and the scholars. When we mentioning about the Peabody, a lot of things that are coming with our research and the faculty team, which we really want to highlight those faculties create strong connections in terms of the global engagement. We are bringing wonderful education leaders from the world to join the Peabody for a short time, like our Humphrey Fellowship program. Every year you will see a dozen of them coming in. They're the senior education leaders from a different country coming in to stay at Peabody for 1 year. That's a great way for a lot of us really making that connection in getting to know their research, their work, as well as their country. And we also this year have 17 of the really young, bright international teachers from the Fulbright Distinguished Award in teaching programs joining us. There will be staying with the Peabody student for 1 semester, and they're in a great way to get to know their teaching technologies as well as the method from a different country. And also the Peabody has a team that specifically on creating and designing a college of education in Baghdad, Iraq. This is called the AUIB project. And this bring our Peabody tradition, the curriculum, the research we do, as well as our grades system of the college application to a different country around the world. So with that global engagement, our students can definitely attaching with the world without even a passport. This is a really a fun way for our students to getting to know and compare, having that international comparison of the education system and knowledge worldwide. And then the other aspect we do, this is mostly my job, is advocacy diversity and support for international students and the scholars who are here on campus with us. To be fair, that most of the students, like in each of the programs, sitting with you as your colleagues, as your fellows, at least the 20% of them are the international students, which means they're coming to the US for the first time. And then you will definitely learn a lot from the different perspectives as well as the culture, and you can make lifelong friends. And then so in order to advocate and support for these international students and the scholars, we created so many different programs in helping them. One is an international mentorship at the Peabody, aka the IMAP program. These are the second-year mentors that consist with a really diverse background of the culture, religion, the programs, and speaking different language. They're going to help our first-year student from the enrollment and all the way into graduation. And the second is we have the workshop series called U.S. Education Concept and Communication. This is the series of the workshop that can provide the different aspects in order to help the international student engage with each other, as well as providing the assistance for them in the different aspects, as well as looking for the resources on campus. And third, that's a really welcoming thing that we do is the community and the culture event. We normally start a school year during the Peabody orientation season with the international breakfast. Normally we have more than 150 people joining us from the entire campus. So this is a really good way to expand your network. And the Mid-Autumn Festival today is actually the Mid-Autumn Festival celebrated today at Peabody Nashville. So we are hosting the event over there while I'm here. So I will be joining them shortly. And we also join the campus for the International Education Week in the middle of November. It's a great celebration worldwide, as well as especially in the US, in order to promoting the exchange of the global education. And then next slide, please. So in terms of explaining that, I will show you a couple of pictures about how we do. The bottom row on the left and the middle corner, that's the IMAP students. So these are the IMAP leaders. We establishing that program as volunteers and gradually transition into the student organization. So the leaders are really stepping up from their mentorship to the leadership of the organizations. So that will be a great way to collaborating with the other student organizations on campus, as well as promoting and creating this community for our international students. And the third picture, the right corner of the bottom row, is our students are enjoying the traditional way of eating fruit cups from Mexico. That's one of the students explaining their culture and connecting with the food. And the top row are some larger events that we do throughout the year. Not only having the middle picture of the international breakfast, you see everybody is looking for the trivia answers by connecting with at least the 12 people around them. But also we have the Thanksgiving lunch. It's a great way of celebrating and reconnecting and rejoining with their community, checking in the middle of the semester. But also we know not everything is happy. Sometimes the things happen in your home country. In the international students' home country, we want to provide the support due to the climate and the geopolitical powers and everything that could happen. So this is the processing session we hosted for the Pakistani students last year during the flood. So these are the different ways we are doing. Some are happy memories, and some are providing support. And to be honest, our office just having this new Instagram is just started. It's really fun way our students are taking initiative of introducing themselves, as well as the diverse community. So next page, we will have the Instagram QR code on it. Feel free to scan it and follow us on that to learn more about the international community at Peabody. And feel free to send us an email, pisa@vanderbilt.edu. So great to see everybody.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I appreciate it. And thank you to all of our offices for being here to share a little bit about what we do to help support students. And with that, we're actually going to transition to the sessions on building a strong and building and submitting a strong application, there's going to be 2 breakouts, one for a graduate, so PhD applications, one for focusing on professional master's programs. And you can feel free to move between these breakout rooms during the sessions if you're not sure which program you want to be in. So PhD room, master's EDD room. So with that, I think Brian's going to help us see the breakout rooms, and hopefully we will see you back here at 11:30. So right now we are getting ready for our faculty panel. So you guys have heard a little bit about the programs that we have here. You've heard from our administration and staff in the ways that we support students, but now we wanted you to have a chance to hear from our faculty. We have an amazing group of faculty from all of our departments that are doing really amazing work. And we wanted you to have a chance to hear what they're doing, as well as a chance to kind of ask some questions yourself. And so with that, I'd love to start by asking each of our panelists to please introduce yourself and to kind of share a little bit more about your research interests and scholarship, what you are working on, maybe a little bit about what you teach if you're teaching. And with that, we'd love to start with Professor Benton. Would you get us started?
I would love to. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dion Benton. Dr. Benton. I am an assistant professor in the Psych and Human Development Department. So for those who don't know, there's actually 2 psychology departments on campus. We're the 2nd psychology department on campus. I study basically babies and how they learn. And in my lab, we study 2 broad topics. The first concerns how babies learn about cause and effect, right? Your ability to reason about causes is part of the reason you're able to navigate the world effectively, right? So a good example of this would be concerns your knowledge about how doors work, right? So a door is a causal system. When you turn the handle, you push the door opens, right? That's the effect. If you didn't know how doors worked, every time you came to a door, you'd be stuck and you wouldn't get anywhere at all, right? So how do babies learn about cause and effect? And then we also study how babies learn to evaluate others based on their actions, right? So how do they learn to distinguish between good people and bad people? And you might imagine why that might be important, right? Among other things, it helps for their survival. And in my lab, we use experiments to get at these questions, but we also use computational models. So basically, we try to make computers do what babies do to get insight into how they learn. And I teach developmental psychology, so the study of how children change. And I also teach a computational modeling course, which teaches some of the techniques that I use in my lab to make computers do what kids do.
Thank you for sharing that. It's funny, but you use that door example. I can remember when my oldest son learned to open the door and he was out the door into the front yard before we knew it. Like, we did not know he knew how to do that, and he was out there. Brings back memories. Dr. Chin, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Chin. I'm an assistant professor of education policy and inequality in the Department of Leadership Policy and Organizations at Vanderbilt Peabody. I am a quantitative scholar. I mostly study the impacts of K-12 education policy on youth outcomes and how it affects inequality between different groups of youth. I'm particularly interested in how schools can support the development of anti-racist youth. And in this vein of work, I looked at the relationships between teachers' implicit racial bias and disparities between Black and white youth in disciplinary outcomes and test scores across the country. And I'm currently working on a few projects looking at how building diverse schools in terms of race can lead to improved racial attitudes among white youth in particular, both in the short and longer term. Listening to Dion describe his work, I have a 2-year-old toddler myself, and I'm like, wow, yeah, I'd love to learn more about how I can stop myself from trying to escape as well. So, but excited to be here, excited to talk to y'all about Peabody, the programs here, my research, other folks' research. But yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. And if you guys remember, Dr. Chin is one of our faculty FaceTimes for Fall Preview Week. So October 13th, he's going to be sharing a little bit more. And with that, I'd love to turn it over to Dr. Oberoi. Dr. Oberoi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to the organizers for having me here. My name is Ashmeet Oberoi, and I'm an associate professor of practice in the Human and Organizational Development Department. This is my second year at Vanderbilt. Before that, I was at University of Miami. The main focus of my work, like my research, practice, teaching, is to understand and create settings that build community where individuals with diverse identities participate. Through my research, I try to answer the big question of how individual, cultural, and school context influence academic outcomes and mental health of immigrant origin youth and young adults. So I look at themes of oppression, power, culture, intergroup relations in my work. For example, I have done research on experiences of Muslim high school students in public high school settings, experiences of older youth, older refugee and unaccompanied youth in alternate educational settings like GED programs, and also looked at the impact of mentoring on immigrant and refugee youth. So, for example, a project I'm currently working on is doing a systematic review of existing studies on mentoring for immigrant and refugee youth and summarizing key takeaways on effectiveness and implications for practice so that program staff and designers who are designing programs on mentoring can learn from what research has to offer. So what inspires me about my area of study is that through my research, I plan to advance knowledge around the science and practice of positive youth development. It's like, how can we create settings that support critically conscious youth who want to challenge existing oppressive structures. I really enjoy being a scientist practitioner and also, while doing research, but also translating research findings for practitioners and policymakers.
Thank you. And I have to admit, I was a bit of a fangirl when Dr. Oberoi came because I quoted her in my dissertation. So her work really influenced the ways that I thought about Muslim youth and kind of the ways in which they navigate school settings. So it's like, yay to having the practitioners that influence be in these spaces. And with that, Dr. Wise.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Now for something completely different. I'm a professor of education and technology in the Department of Teaching and Learning, and I work not with little babies or young kids, but generally much older humans. We do a lot of research on higher education, so it can be undergraduates, master's education, so kinds of programs you might be looking at, doctoral, and also sometimes in the K-12 space. The key feature of my particular research is specifically within technology, looking at the possibilities for working with the data to understand learning while it's happening. So sort of traditional uses of data in education, and Dion spoke about this a little bit, is you might collect some data, do a model and try and understand something, and then hopefully someone's inspired to maybe do things different down the road. What we do in learning analytics is we work to capture data of what's going on in a moment and bring it back to the teachers and students at that same time, looking at their own data to try to understand. So you could imagine, even in Zoom, well, there's just 4 of us highlighted right now, but you could take a look with the 4 of us, who's talking when, how are we talking, are we using our bodies? Well, not with my green screen. You could see who's paying attention. I'm actually noticing people nodding, which is a sign usually that they're listening. Those kinds of things. And you can start to see lots of different interesting things about group dynamics. You can see whose comments pick up on other people's comments. You can also see if different members of a group are not getting a chance to speak, or perhaps they get a chance to speak but aren't heard or listened to, or their words aren't taken up. So there's lots of different possibilities for analytics to help us understand our learning and improve it while it's happening. And I think, if you take a lens of equity, diversity, and inclusion, you can imagine lots of situations where bringing certain things that might have been hidden to the forefront offer opportunities to make a change. So that's some of the research that we work on. We do all sorts of different kinds of data projects. I have a student actually presenting outside right now on the lawn that you can see behind me on a study that looks at how students in a dental practice think about their learning process and how do they learn how to change it. And the goal is to be able to identify automatically students who might not on their own know what they need to do different if they're not succeeding. And as opposed to a very technological approach where you sort of send in the robots, that is a trigger to suggest that maybe there's a conversation that needs to happen between a faculty member and the student to understand what's going on. So that's just a little bit of some of the work that we do.
Thank you all for sharing that. I'd love to know, has there, in your research and your work, has there ever been like an aha moment or a moment that you like really kind of shifted the way you think about your research and work? And Dr. Shin, I'm going to start with you this time.
Yeah, I think for me, what was really striking, why I sort of focused on schools' impact on anti-racist youth and developing anti-racist beliefs is because, for the most part in K-12 education policy in the US specifically, the focus is on test scores and educational attainment, which are really important outcomes, especially when talking about, inequality. But what the research says is that, the majority or a large proportion of differences between students is not because of school, because of, the access they have to healthcare or just discrepancies in sort of interactions with the criminal justice system. So for me, I was thinking about, my theory of action becoming a shifting from thinking about these, traditional outcomes of schools, but these other outcomes that you think, if we can develop youth that have, racial or socioeconomic privilege to care more about inequality by race, by income, if schools could do that, that actually might be able to help address the fact that schools have this sort of limited capacity sometimes to improve, test scores or other traditional outcomes. So for me, during my studies, shifting from this focus on really what schools are sort of, for the most part focusing right now on test scores to these other outcomes, which we think schools should probably affect if we think about, civic engagement and the development of youth who are ready to participate in a democracy, but are generally less studied for the most part, from what I can tell in education policy research, especially ones that use quantitative methods. So this is sort of a big aha moment for me, was like, okay, what I really care about is how can we identify schools that are doing a good job at promoting anti-racist belief, who are, individuals who are engaged in politics and thinking about equity in their day-to-day, since that's such not a part of the culture right now in a lot of education discussions.
Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Oberoi.
Yeah, an aha moment. So while doing my dissertation on Muslim youth in public high schools, when we are reading literature or when we want to do, when we're studying youth with marginalized identities, there's like you read about literature of how difficult the circumstances are for them. And like you read about so many problems, right? So after I completed the data and did my analysis, I really didn't have any findings that would say that, like most of my findings told me that these youth are doing exceptionally well academically in school. Yes, they face challenges socially in terms of representing their religion, like a much higher burden than that you would expect a regular high school student to carry. And so I went to my advisor and I'm like, Ed, I didn't find anything. These are all what do I write about? And he was like, that's exactly what you write about, that this is a story of strength and resiliency. So that was like a moment for me where I'm like, I really wanted to be reflexive of like my own biases and assumptions about the community I work with, I want to study, and what Tuck calls in her writing about damage-centered research, that when we're working with marginalized populations, we're looking at like we wanted to confirm, right, what is wrong, what can be fixed about these populations. But we researchers like can focus on desire-centered research. We can focus on strength and resiliency. So that really helped me pivot the kind of questions I ask, how I ask, and how I approach my research, and most also like how I write about my finding, how I write in my research, and the representational ethics of doing research with minority communities.
Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Benton.
Yeah, so I've had a number of times where I've had to make a shift. And so I'll sort of try to keep this at a high level because it can get technical quite quickly. But when you build models, the point of a model is to try to, so we all have theories about how the world works. And that's especially true for scientists. And in my work, I have theories about how children learn, right? And there's been a number of times where I think that I'm on the right path. That is, I think I have the right idea about how kids are learning in a particular domain. But then when I go to try to build a model, to try to capture some data, right? So when you build models, the goal of or at least one of the goals of building models is to try to basically make the model mimic what kids are actually doing. That's at least how I use models. And in order for the model to mimic what the kids are doing, you have to have pretty much the right idea of how they're solving the problem, right? And I've had a number of situations where I've thought I have some clear idea about how a kid is solving a particular task or reasoning or learning. And then when I try to build a model, the model just doesn't work. And this is important. The reason this is important is because usually when the model doesn't work, what that tells you is that maybe you're not thinking about how the learning operates in quite the right way. And so that's sort of, I have a lot of those moments all of the time where I think I have some idea about how kids are doing something, and I go and I try to build a model of what it is they're doing, and then the model just completely fails. And again, what that tells me is that my thinking is not quite on the right path. And then I just have to go back to the drawing board to figure out where my sort of theory about how the kids are learning sort of falls short. So that's the first general case. I've also had, so causal reasoning is one of my topics and social evaluation is the other. Social evaluation is a newer topic for me. And it was actually, I started to pursue that topic in earnest when the pandemic first started. And it was based on an observation that I made about sort of existing theories about how babies come to evaluate others. And so the existing belief was that this is something all babies are born with, right? So all babies are born with this capacity to evaluate others. And there's been some pretty elegant evolutionary arguments for why that might be the case. But it's always struck me as odd. Those sorts of accounts have always struck me as odd, given that the world is, there's ample opportunity for the babies to learn how to evaluate. And so combined with the pandemic and this observation that, well, maybe these theories about how social evaluation emerge, maybe those aren't quite right, also sort of led me to pursue this whole new line of research, which now is, again, half of my research identity. And so that's basically, I would say, two illustrative examples of how maybe a finding or a bad theory has sort of led to sort of drastic changes in how I pursue the work.
Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Weiss.
Sorry, unmuting. Well, I've been at this a long time, so I'm afraid that there's many times in which my research has pivoted, and that's probably a good sign, because if I was doing this for 15 years and hadn't changed a thing, that would be a bit stagnant. I guess I can think of maybe two real pivot points that are worth sharing. I didn't start off doing learning analytics research. I actually started off as a scholar of computer-supported collaborative learning. So really interested in how students work together to learn through computers. Through computers can be a lot of things. This was long enough ago that we didn't have all of the social media apps we use now. So, old school bulletin boards, but as well, it can be, group conversations in WhatsApp, all the different tools that we use day to day, a Discord server, and wanted to understand how people were learning with each other in online spaces. And in order to do that, I needed to pull the data, and I needed to see the kind of words they were putting in the space, but also the ways in which they were paying attention to other people. And so I got into doing all these analyses of different kinds of clickstream data. And as serendipity would have it, I was presenting at a conference and I was saying, look at all the things we can understand about learners. And someone said the very simple question, well, why don't you show it back to them and see what they want to do about it? And so that was really a pivot moment from working in a tradition of studying collaboration using online data traces to learning analytics, which is trying to get those data traces and really show them back so people can act on them in the moment. So that was sort of transition one, which was much more of a basic research perspective to a much more applied one about how can we make a difference in the world. And then the second transition was, now that we're trying to make a difference in the world, how do we go about it in a way that's not just technical? That's something that we know, right? Technology doesn't change education. People engaging with technology in good ways, maybe, possibly might make education have some new opportunities. And so we started to try to understand and look in detail at how people worked with data tools. And what we found was everyone always thought, oh, it's so hard to understand data. Oh, teachers and students might not be able to understand it. Understanding isn't actually necessarily the hard part or the only hard part. It's what do you do about it? And you can think about that with all the data you see in your life. For example, you might use a Fitbit to track your walking, but if you see you're not getting enough steps, what to do to change that situation isn't always obvious. Should I walk around the block another time? Maybe I should change how I get to work. Should I take the stairs? There's a infinite bunch of possibilities about how to change it. And what we found was people were really having trouble getting not from data to what does it mean, but from what does it mean to what do I do? I'm getting information that says I'm not studying effectively, but probably that might be because I don't know how to study effectively. So what we found was that bridge to action was really important. And that's what our current research is on. How do you design tools, but also the support structures around the tools to make people more empowered to take action on the data?
Thank you for sharing that. I love all of the examples of how you have shifted in your thinking that has enriched and deepened kind of the research and work that you do. And I'd like to shift us a little bit to thinking about inclusive learning spaces. So we know that inclusive learning spaces can help all students feel respected, engaged, and part of the learning environment, whether it's in a classroom or lab or other learning space. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think makes an inclusive learning space, and how do you try to create it yourself? And Dr. Oberoi, I'll start with you this time.
Sure. So early on in my career as an educator, I got teaching advice from several people. And one of the common advice was that I need to create a sense of fear and in my students to be respected. And, especially as a woman, as a faculty of color, to be taken seriously. And I understand, where that was coming from. There's a little bit of, there's definitely value in being respected by your students. But, and I tried doing that the first year, and I would say I was so uncomfortable. It just didn't sit well with who I am. And so I went about looking and trying to find an alternate teaching philosophy that would fit well with, that would resonate with my soul. So in my classrooms and mentoring relationships, I try to create contexts that promote mattering. Mattering as in, it's a combination of two things, where people feel valued and they can also add value. Like they feel they're making a difference in the classroom while also feeling respected and their identities are being affirmed. And there are two routes through which I try to create mattering in my class. So one is pedagogical, that is through the kind of exercises and readings I pick, which help students to be reflective of their own worldviews, assumptions, perspectives, and their multiple social identities. And the other route to create mattering is relational. Like I view myself as serving multiple roles in the classroom. Like I'm the architect of their learning. I'm a subject matter expert, academic coach, part entertainer, performer, and sometimes a pastoral counselor. And I feel that each of these roles have, value, and I've grown to love to playing these roles in my class. Additionally, I've developed a teaching philosophy that I call teaching with compassion and empathy, because in my experience, when I create a flexible classroom structure in my classes where students' commitments and lives outside of the classrooms are validated, like their jobs, their family responsibilities, I find, and this is my experience, that it enhances their academic experience. So for example, I have 2 personal days that students can take off in a 15-week semester where they don't have to provide me with the reasoning for why they're absent. And students can have a 48-hour automatic extension on some assignments in the course, just to provide them more agency in their in how to manage their learning. So if in my courses for professional students, I do a pre-semester survey to understand what their other commitments are, and then I try to create structures that would support structures like study groups that would help them manage their coursework. I have also implemented ungrading and contract grading in some of my courses, just to take the shift away from performance to learning for the sake of learning and growing. So of course, these all need to be balanced by creating structures of accountability as well.
Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Weiss, what about you?
Yeah, so I think I approach things from a little what it maybe isn't interesting is the course I'm currently teaching is a great example, because with technology and education, we know that everybody's coming in from a very different starting point. And we often think about inclusion from the perspective of people's personal backgrounds, but in this case, we also have to think about disciplinary backgrounds. And I think actually the two reinforce very well. So I'm teaching a course that is part students from Peabody Education and part students from computer science. And there's a lot of power in bringing those together to think about learning and technology, but also a lot of challenges. And so, and I would say it's also a very diverse class coming from backgrounds as well. And so we have to think about how do we create a space, and this is going to sound silly for a classroom, but a space of learning. So a classroom should always be a space of learning, but often it's a space of performance where people talk to sound good or feel, they want to come off well in front of their peers or the instructor. And if we think about it as a place for learning, then it's about creating a place where it's safe to say things like, I don't know. And it's safe to say things like, I want to understand. And that can often be very hard because, especially I think as students, we often feel like, well, we should know. And maybe you shouldn't, right? The whole point is if you knew everything already, you wouldn't be coming to our class. And so, the fact that we have people coming from different backgrounds actually makes it opens the door to say very, very straightforwardly, oh, that's not something I've thought about before, or I approach this differently. And so we try and bring in a sort of meta language to make that, not even just sort of okay, but sort of celebrated and encourage, what are the assumptions? There's also a lot of different philosophical assumptions of how work comes from different fields. And so, I've got people everywhere from who are taking, critical stances to doing interpretive work, to doing sort of, maybe traditional psychological perspective, and people who are coming from a computational design take. And these are all different assumptions about how they think about the world. And so we try to really create a space to say, where are you coming from? And where are you coming from means all of you. So it means what I just talked about. It means what's your disciplinary take, but it also means who are you as a human? Because, for example, as a woman who does a lot of work in computer science, I often have a different positionality than some other people. This can be true also depending on race and, other different factors that people come from. And so we try to say, okay, where are you coming from and how are you engaging with the work? What's standing out to you as most important? And what are pieces that maybe you're not finding ways to engage with and why? And so, those are some of the ways that we try and open up a forum for unpacking ideas and approaches from a lot of different perspectives that hopefully gives everybody both something that they feel familiar and connected with, but also a chance to stretch and explore things from other directions.
Thank you. Dr. Benton.
Yeah, those are excellent responses. Can I just say like what everyone else has said? For me, I try to create an inclusive environment both in the lab as well as in most especially in the lab, actually, with respect to this first bit, by ensuring that there's quite a bit of diversity in the lab. And so I actively will go out and seek to recruit underrepresented minorities to work in my lab. Mostly because in my experience, those aren't the students who often seek out research opportunities, even though they are perfect. Some of them are perfect fits for a research. And right, seeing diversity, I think, sort of communicates that you're willing, I think, that the environment you're working in is itself inclusive. Also, this is just who I am as a person, but I'm very much open to different perspectives, and my students know that as well. And so I communicate to my students and also my mentees that, I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And I'm constantly seeking feedback from my students and my mentees about how I can do my job better and how I can make their lives better. I actively try to humanize students. And so, and I actually learned this trick from a PhD advisor. So whenever I start meetings with students, whether they're in my lab or students in my classrooms, I always ask them how they're doing. How is life for them before we jump into anything academic? This communicates to students that I care about who they are as people, right? It's not just about the work is important, sure, but so are they, right? And I try to communicate that. I try to create equal opportunities. And so I have students working with me at different levels. So I have master's students, I have undergrads, I have honor students, right? But I try to carve out time to meet with every student in the lab to ensure that I'm doing whatever I can to ensure that their learning goals are being met, right? And I also go out of my way to make sure that, students are provided with equal opportunities. And so those are just some of the ways I try to create an inclusive environment. Something fun I did in class was what I try to do is, and this is going along with something I said just a few minutes ago, is that, I try to tell students that I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And so I'm one of the few, I'm a person who's willing to admit when I don't know something, and I do that in front of students all the time. And this seems to actually excite students. It's like, oh, actually, he doesn't know everything. And I recently just had this experience when I was teaching a lecture in developmental psychology where I actually genuinely didn't know the answer. And I remember stopping the lecture and asking students, because they all had their laptops open anyway, asking them to look for the answer, right? This is absolutely sort of, I think, an inclusive activity or an activity that communicates inclusivity. So these are the different ways in which I try to ensure that the spaces I work in are as inclusive as possible. And I'm still, I'm just a second year assistant professor, so I'm still learning, right? And there's lots to learn. But these are at least some of the small ways that, some of the few things I do to try to, like I said, ensure that the spaces I work in are as inclusive as they can be. Yeah.
Did the students find the answer?
So it turns out that it varies by state. actually. So the question was uh, something about abortion. We were talking about prenatal development, and it was I forget exactly the question, but the answer, it turned out, varied by state, and so this led to a whole different discussion, which was really interesting. Yeah.
It's funny how that can happen. Like you just get different discussions go in different ways.
That's right. That's right.
Dr. Chin.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of the approaches that my colleagues sort of voiced, but I'd say for myself, a lot of my view on building inclusive classrooms stems from my own experiences in K-12, but also in higher ed, as both my parents immigrated from China to the United States, and sort of being in spaces, especially in college and university, where feeling like I lacked a lot of the cultural capital that some of my peers did, sort of being able to engage with professors and also with the material being taught, sort of lacking some sort of common background knowledge or content knowledge that my classmates had, and sort of feeling a little bit othered in that space. So the way I sort of practice that in my own teaching, or I try to at least, first, most importantly, sort of this idea that a lot of other folks brought up around relationship building, right? So we've all had probably professors or teachers who've been, want to build a relationship with you, want to have you in their office to talk about your interests, your questions, but it's really hard sometimes to feel like you can reach out to a professor or show up for office hours if you're, you don't have that background or that, even that learning from your past experiences. And so for my work, I try a lot to proactively reach out to students myself, ask them to literally send them emails like, I want to meet with you to talk about anything about the class, about your interests, just to put the onus on myself to build that relationship and not on the student. I think that helps a lot in terms of sort of, addressing disparities between students who might not have that comfort to reach out to professors proactively. So that's one way I think about a lot of my own teaching and mentorship. Another way is sort of just, the openness to being, the humility of not knowing, and sort of not assuming sort of shared knowledge of students of the content being taught. I think I mostly teach quantitative methods courses, and there's a lot of things people don't know, but some folks might have more experience, and it can be really scary if you feel like your peers are ahead of the curve on you on some topic. And having a starting point where I assume no one knows anything, and it is my job to sort of bring everyone to the same level, and not sort of use jargon or rely too heavily on jargon or specific pieces of information that some groups might not have had access to for a lot of different reasons. I think that's really important as well. It's in terms of just real concrete, I rely heavily on free texts whenever possible online. We've all been in courses where textbooks cost a lot of money, and even if you're able to sort of sell it at the end of a course, that's a lot of that's a big weight in terms of cash flow for a lot of students. They have to pay for those things themselves. So I think sort of in a truly concrete material way, just reducing the fiscal burdens of students to be able to take a class and engage with the class is really important. I think just overall my philosophy sort of around teaching and mentorship, as a scholar and academic who's interested in education equity, being humble to realize that, part of my work as a professor is to value those two aspects of my career. And that's not true for a lot of professors necessarily. But it's just kind of hard for me to envision a world where my research, if it is equity oriented, can succeed if I'm not able to sort of achieve that sort of orientation in my own teaching and mentorship. So that's sort of my broad philosophy, in addition to specific things I try to do in my classroom as well.
Thank you for that. A lot of food for thought for all of us here today. And I do want our participants in this session, if you guys have questions, we'd love to hear from you, both in the chat and if you'd like to kind of raise your hand and ask a question. We actually do have one right off the bat. How often have you taught a course as a team? I don't know if anybody's had that experience. What was that like for you?
I can go. So for 4 semesters, I co-taught a big lecture classroom, which was meant for like, we had over 50 students per semester, and I co-taught a course on, it was a freshman, sophomore level course called psychosocial and community well-being. And we went over an ecological perspective on well-being and the different domains of well-being, like physical, educational, community, family. And then I also developed and taught a course called intergroup dialogue, which is centered on intergroup dialogue on multi-faith identities and worldviews. And for that, the model of the dialogue is such that you have to have two facilitators of dialogue, one with a more mainstream majority identity, and one with who represents a minority identity. So in the dialogue around worldviews and multi-faith traditions, my co-facilitator was white, who identified as Christian, and I referred like I was a woman, first generation. Oh, he was white, American born, and identified as Christian, and I was first generation immigrant woman of a minority faith. I identify as a Sikh. So that was intentional in the design of the course. I can talk more about the relationship, how it helped, like the challenges, and if that is what you're interested in. But yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I think one question was about kind of maybe learning outside the classroom. And I know, Dr. Benton, you talked about your lab spaces, and how can students get involved?
Yes. So one of the things we do in my lab, well, first, so there's sort of two questions there. How can students get involved with to do the kind of work that I'm doing, but also learning outside of the traditional setting? In addition to running studies on campus, we run studies at the local Adventure Science Center, which is a science center for kids. It's about a 10-minute drive from campus. We test at the museum every Saturday. And for me, this serves multiple purposes. First, it ensures that our samples happen to be as diverse as possible, right? There's a certain kind of person who's able to make it to campus, who's able to come to campus with their kids. And that kind of person might be different than the kind of person who goes to a science center. Now, granted, the people who go to science centers might also be different from the general population. But in any case, testing at the museum ensures that our samples are a little bit more diverse. But beyond that, I think this is an excellent opportunity for students to learn to communicate the work that we're doing in a way that just someone who doesn't do research can sort of comprehend. And so for me, I like testing at the museum because it helps to demystify what it is that we do. And so you'd be surprised that some parents think that what we do in our lab involves like doing surgery on babies' brains and all of that, but that couldn't be furthest from the truth, right? A lot of what we're doing involves playing simple games with kids. And so what my RAs are sort of responsible for doing is trying to demystify, and that's a certain skill that you have to learn. And, in order for our work to be effective, we have to be able to communicate it to the wider public. And so being forced to do that every single Saturday is, I think, an excellent learning opportunity for my RAs. And obviously it's outside of the traditional setting, but they're able to apply a lot of what they're learning on campus, in my lab, in the classroom, to the world. I just think it's a great opportunity. Now, how can folks get involved with my work? So you can email me directly. I don't require any prerequisites. The only prerequisite I require is that you are interested in doing the work that I'm kind of doing. So working with babies, right? Working with kids. Now there's one small hiccup. Vanderbilt has an add drop period. And so in order to join labs, you typically want to try to join before the add drop period. Now, I will also say something about, and this has to do with inclusivity. I don't allow volunteers in my lab. So if you work in my lab, you are either getting paid or you're either getting course credit. And the reason I do that is because for those who have to work, so there are, of course, college students who have to work to pay their way through college, who would love to do research, who wouldn't otherwise be able to volunteer because they don't have the time. And so it's sort of inequitable if I were to allow some students to volunteer, if I were to allow volunteering as an option. And so again, for me, if you join my lab, it usually has to be at the beginning of the semester, the only prerequisite being that you're interested in what we're doing. And you'll join either to get paid or to get course credit. And you can send me an email directly at, I'm sure my email is linked here somewhere. You can just find me on the Vanderbilt's website. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. And I think we have some specific questions about particular labs and courses. And I think maybe Cassie Kim can help us. We do have a large number of labs across Peabody College studying different things in each of our departments, people doing different work with funding for different types of studies. So there actually are a lot of research opportunities and tend to be posted like on our job boards, and when those opportunities become available. In terms of like thinking about like how much courses cost, things like that, we are absolutely happy to answer those questions from our admissions folks. So we will, and I think, thank you for those people who are putting their emails in there. We will definitely kind of get you connected with the folks that you are interested in connecting with. So thank you to all of our panelists for sharing your time and experience with us. We are at our break. So I wanted to give people, because I know you guys have been here for a while and we really appreciate you and want you to have a chance to take a little break. So between now and 12:30, we'll have a 10-minute break, and then we'll have our student panel. So you can hear kind of now from our students and what their experiences are like here at Peabody College. Again, Dr. Benton, Dr. Chin, Dr. Oberoi, Dr. Wise, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you sharing your time with us here today. So, yeah. And with that, if there are folks that have specific connections, please feel free to put it in the chat, and we will see you at 12:30. So you guys might be tired of me now, but I'm really actually so excited for our student panel who are joining us today, representing just a couple of different degree programs, different program areas within Peabody College, so you could get kind of this idea of all the different programs that students are in, as well as kind of the different experiences that people both come into Peabody with, as well as have while they're here. So I am so excited to welcome all of you here. Thank you for coming. And I would love for you to kind of get us started with just kind of sharing a little bit about yourself, your program, and why you chose Peabody. And I'll start with you, Bryant, if you could get us started off.
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bryant Best. I am a PhD candidate in the Department of Teaching and Learning here at Peabody College. I'm pursuing a PhD in Justice and Diversity in Education. And there were a lot of factors that led to me coming to Peabody. Originally, or before I came to Peabody, I was working in Washington, D.C., doing some work in education policy and advocacy, particularly around educational equity. And when I looked around and I looked at my peers, I looked at my colleagues, I realized that for folks that look like me, for folks that were making an impact and doing the work that I wanted to do, I noticed that they all had 3 letters after their name, right? And so I thought it was interesting. I thought it was curious. But if I was committed to the work, I realized what I needed to do. And so I went on a process of trying to figure out what school was right for me. And when I visited Peabody, there were 2 things that stood out to me. One, the advisor that I was interested in working with was a man of faith in his expression of his faith, but then also in naming his daughters Grace and Faith. And I thought that was really powerful and really important. And then the other thing too is that Peabody's campus actually used to be Rogers Williams University, which was dedicated to educating Black educators. And if you look at the Wyatt building, which is where I work and do most of my events and things like that, there's an inscription on top, like right above the steps, that says that the entire building is dedicated to the glory of God and the service of man. And I thought that was really unique and powerful. So there were so many historical factors, contextual factors, but in a nutshell, that's why I came to Peabody.
Sorry, Zoom mistakes. It feels like I should unmute myself all the time. But Eliza, I would love for you to share next.
Sure. Thanks, Athena. Hi, everybody. It's good to be with you. My name's Liza Blades. I use she, her pronouns. I got the chance to meet with a couple of folks on this call, hopefully earlier this morning. I am the Assistant Director for the Office of Student Engagement and Wellbeing, but I'm also a student. I'm in the ADD program, which is the Doctorate in Education. It's the Higher Education Leadership and Policy program. The best way that I can kind of describe it, how I think about it for myself, is it's very much a practitioner's degree, meaning it's a cohort of folks who are principals or community organizers or teachers or work in all different sectors of higher education. And our classes are around how higher education develops, how it grows. My focus is very much on how we can make it more equitable. A couple of my projects that I'm working on now are around increasing accessibility for neurodiverse students. And then also my forever deep commitment and joy in terms of figuring out how higher education can be more accessible for LGBTQIA+ students. And what made me choose Peabody, I got my master's here as well in the Community Development and Action program. Hey, Ayin. Yeah, and I fell in love with Peabody. I have worked at several higher education institutions prior to coming to Vanderbilt. And in my experience, Peabody specifically does such a good job of being in partnership with the Nashville community, whether it's faculty, partnering with community members for research, whether it's doctoral students who are designing their entire dissertations around a particular issue facing Nashville. I just feel like Peabody does a good job of it. And so it was a place where I felt safe enough to come and really learn at the feet of people about how communities develop and how we can make them more equitable.
Thank you, Eliza. Ayin.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. My name is Ayin Ely and I am receiving my Master's of Education in Community Development and Action. So hey Liza. I have a multifaceted background in direct action, organizing grassroots movement work, and a focus on community health and well-being. So I was out of college for a while before deciding to go back, or just before deciding to pursue a degree. And essentially I found that the theories that I was referencing and the work that I was doing, I found was impressive, but not deemed credible until there was some academia attached. And I think that that is the way our society is structured. So I sought out this program because it seemed to communicate technical learnings in community level change. And since that was the work that I was doing, I figured it would not hurt to pursue a degree in that so I could get more technical language. And throughout the process of my education, I already found that I was doing a lot of the work. I just did not have the academic language to reference it as such. I graduated from Spelman College, so I lift that up because there has been a cultural shift just coming to a predominant white institution that's also located in the South, and that's not Atlanta. And so there was a natural adjustment that came from that, being out of school for a while and then in an entire different set of communities. With that being said, I've found an immense amount of support from my professors and from my peers, from the staff, as I was concerned that my original application was going to be too radical for Vanderbilt and Tennessee, if I must be honest. And because they took an interest in me, I thought that that was a good sign. So I'm excited to be here and to talk more about my experiences and hear from the rest of my peers.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Lydia.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to preface, I have a cat that is absolutely causing havoc in my kitchen right now, so I apologize if you hear him. But my name is Lydia Rodriguez. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a second-year student in the Higher Education Administration program. I got into higher ed in undergrad. I originally wanted to do school counseling at the high school level, and then had an internship during COVID. And, for safety reasons, I didn't want to be going to a high school and, being in all these different places where I could be exposed. So I did an internship at my undergrad institution and realized that I loved working with college students. And so then from there, I was like, okay, never mind, we're pivoting. But I'm so glad that I did. And this has really been a wonderful, program to really develop. I chose Peabody for a number of reasons. One, compared to some of the other programs that I was applying for, a lot of those were student affairs focused. I appreciated that the higher ed program here has a student affairs track so that I could still explore that, but then I also could explore other avenues of higher ed and kind of become a more well-rounded practitioner. My own professional background is in TRIO programs. I'm a McNair scholar myself, and I'm doing a practicum with McNair right now. I've also worked at TRIO Student Support Services, so really trying to look at first-generation students and students with lower limited income or with documented disabilities or underrepresented backgrounds succeeding and thriving in higher education and achieving some really amazing things. And I knew that Peabody was a place that I could still have an impact and learn how to have more of an impact. And then also, since I came from a McNair background, I've done a lot of research, and I knew that if that was something I wanted to engage in, that was definitely an opportunity that I could have at Peabody. And then also, I just kind of had one of those gut feelings, when you know, sort of a thing. Because one day I was like, I think this is my program, and I started bawling. And I was like, all right, well, if the tears are coming out for this and nothing else, this is probably the place. And I also forgot to mention, I'm a co-president of PLASA, which is the Peabody Latinx Alumni and Student Association. So we'll probably touch on that a little bit later, but that's also a little bit about me.
Thank you, Lydia. And also love for your cats, it sounds like in the chat. Some people have similar experiences. Khalid, can you share a little bit about yourself and why you chose Peabody?
Sure, thank you so much. So I'm Khalid. I am an international student, and I come here and I'm also a Fulbright scholar. The reason Peabody was on the top of my list was the sheer diversity of it. And I had previously worked with Peabody alumni in Pakistan, 2 or 3 in different organizations, and they are doing brilliant things. So that was one of the main reasons. Secondly, the degree that I'm doing here, International Education Policy and Management, if you look at it, each word in this degree represents a diverse set of experiences, and I can attest to the fact that no single person in our cohort has a similar trajectory. Each individual has their own experiences in terms of what they're doing, what their practicums are about, and that's one of the things I like about Peabody. I can take electives from any place at Vanderbilt. It could be the business school, it could be other degrees at Peabody. I've taken some electives in leadership and organization development, and because I want to pursue a career in consulting, so I'm mixing it with my educational policy experience and my previous experience of working with nonprofits, which is a 4 years experience. So I'm bringing that on board as well. So I believe that this is what I was envisioning. And as Eliza put it, it's a practitioner's degree. What we do is, we do projects. Our practicum is also very, something that you do. So this is what I was looking for, because my interest lied in doing things with the organization, with community members, and this is what I have done over the past 1 year. So I feel that what I was envisioning before coming here, doing something practical and having a very diverse experience, and the Peabody has provided me all of that. It has given me the experiences that I was looking for. And secondly, as an international student, what's most important for me is, as a brown Muslim individual here in the US, it's the existence of diverse faculty and diverse students. And that's what I've found. I've learned from my peers here at Vanderbilt, and the student organizations are very supportive of my identity and other identities. So when I found out that all of this is available at Peabody with great academic rigor and practical opportunities, I thought that's it for me. So yeah, this is why I led to Peabody.
Thank you for sharing that. The next question I wanted to ask all of you is, as a student from a historically underrepresented group, there can be challenging expectations as well as some really interesting opportunities. What challenges and opportunities have you experienced, and how have you navigated them? And this time, Eliza, I might start with you.
Sure. So this past year, in particular, has been really hard to be queer in Tennessee. Just honestly, I identify as bisexual. My spouse is non-binary, and yeah, there's been quite a lot of local legislation and that has limited access to transgender healthcare. There's also been, you might have heard about the drag bill, prohibiting drag in the state of Tennessee. All that to say, it's been a really difficult environment. My spouse and I are both from the South. We moved away for a good bit, and then made a deliberate decision when I got into my master's program to come back to the South. And actually, the South is the largest section of the country that has the most queer folks. So by the way, all that to say though, in transitioning to kind of the difficulty, but then also like how I've made sense of it, and how what it's been like to continue to choose to be here. I think one of the most difficult pieces for me is the fact that in a lot of ways the narrative has been very much one of struggle and negativity, and it hasn't been able to highlight all of the really amazing people that care a lot about trans kids, or like doing like youth organizing for LGBTQ folks, or that like LGBTQ youth hosted like a queer prom in Franklin, Tennessee, which is like the county below Nashville. My spouse works at the transgender clinic at Vanderbilt Medical Center. I do really want to highlight this because, of course, healthcare is it's a big part of the challenge. All that to say, Vanderbilt has one of the most comprehensive clinics for transgender care, as well as a whole list of LGBTQ plus affirming doctors, counselors, all different types of healthcare professionals that have identified themselves as affirming. And so all those exist. And I think that that's the piece that's kept me, is that there is a really thriving, awesome LGBTQIA plus community in Nashville. And there are ways, I mean, I work very closely with different groups within the city, within churches, different faith communities that are affirming as well. All that to say, it's here, and there are ways to get involved. I am also kind of representing today on behalf of the president. One student organization I want to highlight is Career in Education and Development. It's here at Peabody. They actually just co-hosted a program with Peabody Coalition for Black Graduates, which Ayin serves as leadership on. Emma Walker is the president of that organization. So if you identify within the community, or if you're an ally and you're kind of wondering, wow, what's it like to be queer in education right now? This is a place where people can get together and talk about it. So if you have any questions, feel free to message me, and I'm always happy to talk about it.
Thank you for sharing that, Eliza. I appreciate you. Ayin, would you like to share a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Eliza, for that. I exist and navigate as an unapologetically Black, culturally, socially, and politically conscious sister. And I experience challenges walking in that power wherever I go. So it's not limited to Tennessee. What I will say, surprisingly, I was expecting resistance from my research and project interests, because I'm committed to challenging and dismantling the false notion of white supremacy, and that shows up in my work. And I was very concerned about existing in that and moving in that in terms of projects and research, and still being supported by white professionals, staff, students, and have had the exact opposite experience. And I am so thrilled because of that very reason, that folks are open to the necessary changes that will allow America to be what it has set out to be. Not necessarily what it set out to be, but what the Constitution at least suggests, right? And so I've been surprised at the amount of support that I've received and how tailored this particular community development and action program is. So I'm not sure how experiences are outside of Peabody. I hear Owen Business School is completely different, but that's not my concern at this moment. I'm also the president of Peabody Coalition of Black Graduates. And so I've been very intentional about building community, connecting with other Black staff, Indigenous and other staff of color as well, to hear about their professional journeys and experiences and how they navigate any structural violence, systematic inequities, and of course, to Eliza's point, the current political climate in Tennessee. My organization, PCBG, we hosted State Rep Mr. Jones, Justin Jones, last year, right before he had the debacle in Congress. So to have that type of connection with state representative, trying to build out political power, increasing network beyond staff, students, and peers to reach out to the community, that really allows Vanderbilt and Peabody to exist. It's, I think, like silent partnerships that allows that to flourish. So I would say that I'm having a positive experience in terms of my educational experience. Socially, being one of the oldest people in my program, because I did not come out straight out of college, has been an unexpected challenge. Who knew that like 10 years was a generational gap? Who knew? But with that, it's allowed me to move beyond in tandem, right? Connecting with my my cohort, my classmates, students across Peabody and Vanderbilt, but really get out into the community, because there are people who live and exist off of campus. And I've been really excited to explore that and continue to move in my power and continue to grow and be a part of the remarkable change and positive upswing that is happening in Nashville.
Thank you for sharing that, Ayin. I love that. It is different being an older student. I like connect with you on that. Lydia.
Yeah, so I think for me, something that when I was reflecting on this question that I think made me really happy was the things that really did come to mind first were the opportunities, which I think is such a lovely thing. That's not always the case, but I think the community at Peabody is such a strength of, you know, our school and our college and our programs. And I think in the beginning, I was very, and this is on me, I was a little bit siloed in my program. I didn't do as much reaching out to individuals outside of my program as I think would have been beneficial, because I didn't see a lot of representation in my own cohort and my own program. And that representation is in Peabody. I just had to kind of, it wasn't in my classes most of the time because the nature of my program, I just didn't have a lot of people who looked like me. And it kind of depends on the year. Like the cohort above me had a lot of Hispanic and Latinx representation, which was wonderful. In my particular year, there wasn't as much of that. And so I do think that there definitely can be, some imposter syndrome coming in when you see that people don't necessarily look like you. But I think in terms of finding community, like I mentioned, I'm a co-president of Plaza. So I've been doing a lot, especially this year in my second year and kind of towards the end of my first year, kind of connecting with other Latinx and Hispanic folks, which has been really lovely in terms of also like learning about different Latinx cultures, because there are so many nuances to each of the different like Hispanic and Latinx identities and, different traditions that people have that I've been able to learn about and grow in that way, which has been really nice, because I feel like you don't really think about, oh, there's more that I can learn about my own identity, but there really can be. There can be so much that you can learn from other individuals. So I think that has been an area of growth for me. But I think just in general, like the staff and faculty are incredibly supportive. I have the pleasure of working with Hasina and Eliza in the Peabody Administration Building and that whole team of individuals. And so, just the support. And I always know that I have people that I can go talk to if I need it and if I'm struggling in that sense. But I do think that even though I don't have necessarily a lot of Hispanic representation in my program, I still don't feel that like people have been at all, prejudiced towards me or excluding of me or in any sense of that. I still felt included. It just, I didn't see visually people that looked like me. And so sometimes I feel like in the beginning, that led to a little bit of imposter syndrome, but I've been able to kind of find community within my own program and then outside of it with people that do look a little bit more like me, which has been really lovely. And yeah, I saw a comment just now about cross club collaborations. I definitely know there's some that have happened and some that are in the works and stuff like that. And I think that that's really been special to see. And like, behind the scenes, like we've been invited to other people's events and things like that just to go and support, which has been really cool. And so yeah, I think there's a lot of really good stuff happening with like the student organizations at Peabody as well in terms of creating community. So go Eliza, because she helps coordinate that effort. And yeah, so there are challenges and there are opportunities, but I feel like I've done a lot of growing and found a lot of a lot of culture and things that I've gotten to learn about that have been really valuable to my growth and development, as a growing professional and as a human and things like that. So it's been a really lovely experience overall, but not to say that it's without its challenges. But I think the growth that I've gotten as a result of it has been really valuable and pivotal to my growth as a professional and person.
Thank you, Lydia. Khaled.
Thank you, Hasina. So coming to like as an international student, I knew little about USA. I knew, okay, New York is there, there's Florida, there's California, but getting to know about Nashville and then reading about the history of US South was a bit scary. As a Muslim brown individual, like it wasn't easy. But my first interaction here was with Peabody and with Vanderbilt community, which quite unlike the larger Nashville community is more inclusive. Not to say that Nashville community isn't inclusive. There are people, progressive organization and people in the greater Nashville area who are very supportive. But I remember my first interaction happened with Hasina around the time when Pakistan was having a lot of floods. And like it was like one of the largest floods in the history. And I reached out to professors at Peabody and Hasina specifically. and they took time from their schedule to talk about it and to see the ways they can support Pakistani students here. And what came with it was a bunch of sessions and then collaborations with other students from the global south who are facing these natural calamities. Climate change doesn't know any border. Like even in USA now, it's very prevalent in various parts of the states. So that was my introduction to what cohesive, progressive, and inclusive community has the potential of. COVID taught us that borders don't mean much now. What I am facing in like thousands of miles away, anyone is facing in their country, in their city. And unfortunately, a lot of countries are leaning towards fascism at this point in time. So I've realized at Peabody that there's power in collaboration. There are student societies representing marginalized groups, and they all come together to discuss these issues of importance. Like I remember in my first semester, we had a class on post-secondary access, and every week we looked at one community and how access to post-secondary education is limiting for them. And that was a very diverse class from different programs, people representing different ethnic groups, different sexual identities, and different religious identities as well. And speaking in this class and being reassured really made me feel good about the power of inclusion that Peabody manifests. And I believe to this day, I can bring in any issue that is of concern for me. Like we had Ramadan last year, and students and professors are very respectful of the timings and everything. And even in like events, when you go, there is respect in terms of dietary restrictions. Like any event, you would know that you, no matter what dietary restrictions are, if as a Muslim, if you eat halal, you would have those options. Like, and it goes beyond that. If you are vegetarian or vegan, you will have those options as well. So in these little tiny things such as what to eat, there is care. And now that I am a student leader and I'm working with different student organizations, it doesn't come to me as a surprise that I have to care about each individual and make sure that our planning is inclusive of all. We cannot do something or present something for food which is like restrictive for one person or the other. So I think it's in the ethos of Peabody. And I'm currently sitting at this office called Peabody Administration Building. Last year as a student, I used to walk in and was greeted with smiles from Eliza, from Wendy, from Hasina, from all these individuals. So I feel very included, I feel supported, and my identity is celebrated, and I'm given a platform to speak from my heart. And as you go around different areas of Nashville, sometimes you feel a difference. You go to New York, you see diversity. I was recently in Miami. I saw a lot of people of color, but in Nashville, it's very rare to see a brown person. So going to New York was a shocker for me, and that made me realize how less diverse Nashville can be at times. But this Vanderbilt part of the Nashville and Peabody part of the Nashville really gives you the platform to then celebrate your identity and walk with confidence as you go out in other parts of Nashville. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Bryant.
Yeah, so I mentioned that I came to Vanderbilt because my advisor named his daughters Grace and Faith. Another reason why I came is because my advisor was the first Black person to receive tenure in the history of Peabody, right? And coming from where I came from in Washington, D.C., that meant a lot to me because I understand that there are unique historical and contemporary challenges if you're a person of color or from a underrepresented background. For me, what's been most challenging is the process itself, the process of becoming a professional in the academy, because a lot of times you'll get so many conflicting messages about who you need to be and where you need to try to get to. On one hand, people will tell you that you need to immerse yourself in the literature and read hundreds, if not thousands of pages from scholars from all over the world. And then at the same time, they'll tell you that you need to find your own voice, your niche, and the gap in the literature. Sometimes you'll need to respond to feedback, right? Whether it's constructive or critical. And no matter your process for organizing your thoughts around feedback, that takes time. And at the same time, you have to find time to write every single day, right? So if I'm going to be intentional and thoughtful about this feedback, but I need to write every single day, and so like there's always these conflicting messages that you get when you're in the program. So that's been the most challenging part, is just the process itself of becoming an academic. And to be honest, I haven't quite figured that out, how to address all those points. But what I will say, that I found a couple things to be helpful. The first of which is church, and like having like strong support groups within church. I mentioned in the chat that I'm married, and my wife and I, we were part of the marriage ministry at our church. There's a couple of other different subgroups within the church that we feel like are very supportive and very helpful for whatever we need. Prayer, just a shoulder to lean on, all those sorts of things have made a tremendous difference in my experience on campus. I will also say finding my peer group on campus, and this is a very recent development, but there are two other Black men, one of which used to be a student at Vanderbilt. He didn't transfer to another institution with his supervisor. The two of me, him, and a third person, we're all Black men, we're all PhD students, but we also have the same hobby, the same shared hobby in gaming. Like, we love to play video games. And so we were talking about a game that came out recently that we all enjoyed. And we were like, you know what? What if we decided to try to create a research project around this video game? And so we actually spent like a good portion of the summer just playing this video game, just talking, meeting like it was a regular, legit meeting, and coming up with ideas. We submitted a research proposal around a video game to a conference in Hawaii, and we got accepted. So like next month, me and another member of the team are going to be flying to Hawaii to present research on video games, right? And so like just finding your community, finding your niche, and trying to find that intersection of where like the things that you love, the things that you're good at, and the things that you can make money doing, like finding the intersection between all three. I think you have a very unique opportunity to get very close to that as an academic, where it may not be as possible in other types of professions. And then finally, I'll say another thing that's helped out a lot is just the resources. Like, I heard when I came to Vanderbilt in 2019 that Vanderbilt is a very resource-rich institution. And I was like, resource-rich, what does that mean exactly? Well, when you get to campus, if you choose Vanderbilt, and we hope you do, there's just so many things around anything you could possibly need. Like, if you want help with writing, we have writing centers that'll help you with your writing. If you want a free meal, right? Like, there's actually a GroupMe on campus, and it's totally student based, but every time there's free food on campus, people always post pictures and send texts. And one of my friends from a couple years ago, he was a master's student, he graduated now, but he checked that GroupMe every day, and he was able to eat without going to the grocery store for like 2 months, right? Because that's how many events were on campus that had free food. There's the Black Cultural Center. I enjoy the Black Nashville Assembly. That's a great nonprofit organization in the area. And yeah, just so many different opportunities. When you sign up for newsletters, they'll say, hey, we have this fellowship opportunity. We have this weekend opportunity to, connect with this group. There are so many opportunities like that on campus, and those have been tremendously helpful as well. Can I share the magical free food group? Yeah, I'll share the name of it.
I love it that like our
yeah.
panel is learning from each other. So this is great. Like, it's just it's what we hope for. As always, you guys can put questions in the chat, or if you'd like to ask questions, we do have a couple more. I have, we saw a question in the chat, and I think you guys all responded around housing in Nashville. That's definitely something that our graduate professional students deal with. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything out loud beyond that, but we did have a question around what's it like to live and learn in Nashville, and if housing is part of that answer, welcome you to like share that as well. But what do you like best about living and learning in Nashville? And Ayin, I'll start with you this time.
So I work full time. I am able to have where my practicum is also my full-time job, but working full-time while being a full-time grad student while taking on leadership positions is very challenging. I'm capable, qualified, I'm sure we all are, but it is a challenge. So I want to name that and be very honest with that. Secondly, so my first year was really isolating. Also a moment of, I mean, I've been honest this whole time, but honesty that does not necessarily paint the most pleasant picture. But I think it's important when speaking practically about transitioning to a new place, being single and doing so, living on your own and not knowing anyone, while trying to undergo a big task and a big accomplishment. So I, along with Brian, actually belong to an Institute for Recruitment of Teaching Fellowship that supports Black, Indigenous, and folks of color, folks from the global majority who are marginalized in getting into grad school. That has helped me connect with folks like Brian and whomever else may have gone through that program who's at Vanderbilt. But similar to what Khaled was saying, without saying, but I'm gonna say it, due to gentrification, Nashville, Tennessee is overwhelmingly white. And because of that, there's been a systematic push out of the Black, Indigenous, and folks of color who are the international population who's present more so in Antioch and other surrounding areas in Nashville. But because of that, that impacts the food, the music, the social environment. And so my first year, despite loving the program and loving the material, I feel like I did not have much of a social life. In part because working full-time and going to school full-time disallowed the type of freedom necessary to explore and find and seek community, because that too takes time. And so this year I have an affirmation: I'm healthy, I'm healed, I'm enjoying myself in Nashville, and I am going to make that my truth. And so I am intentionally partnering and seeking communities that are present. So there's the Nashville, the National Museum of African American Music that hosts a lot of events. I'm trying to find niche areas where folks, young professionals, are gathering. And again, with my practicum, my job, I do work at the system level across 7 counties to help fill the gaps in health and wellness resources in Nashville and Tennessee, and that's a high order. So I am expanding my network, and similar to what Brian was saying in terms of Vanderbilt being resource rich, I was able to secure my practicum through seeking the career service support. I found out that my director actually graduated from the CDA program 10 or so years ago. And so connecting with individuals, Kim Brazil, I think I'm saying her last name right. I met her last year virtually, and because I work full time, I have not yet been able to see this amazing woman in person, but she's always on my mind and on my heart. And I say that because she was the first person whom I connected to start thinking about what the resources look like from a pragmatic level when coming to Nashville, Tennessee. So connecting with folks who are already here, connecting with current students, but it also takes time. And I also think that one thing that isn't mentioned is the fact that we have to negotiate our priorities, our wants, our needs, and our desires. Unless you all have something different, please do share so I can also learn from you. But I found myself having to compromise on seeking that social community until I actually had the capacity to do so, which looked like summertime. So I'm still trying to explore Nashville, Tennessee with a year under my belt at Vanderbilt and Peabody. And I'm looking forward to having those cohorts and creating dope research projects stemming from the interests that I have and to continue to partner with Plaza and other organizations to really deepen those connections with other scholars, because I'm really committed to this idea that the folks that I'm meeting now are going to be the folks whom I'm going to be in boardrooms with in the near and far future. And so I think it's very important to go through the process of deepening those relationships, even in the midst of time capacity and even in the midst of feeling, quite frankly, isolated sometimes. I think just post-COVID, the climate of our society, there's not a lot of organic ways in which communities are forming, how they were prior to 2020. Just so much has shifted socially, systematically, culturally. And so those are things that I think are important to name and to be mindful of when embarking upon this journey. But I'm still here, and I'm excited and looking for more opportunities to further nourish me.
Thank you so much, Ayin, for that. And I know you got some love in the chat too, so really appreciate you sharing that. Lydia.
Oh gosh, how can I follow up to that? We just went everywhere in all directions. I can't compete. But I guess what I'll add on to that, one, kind of adding on to the Kim Brazel love going on in the comments. I think the people that I work with has been such a shock. Like, I knew that the people would be wonderful and professional, but how like personable people are, like the professional staff members and faculty members that are at Peabody, and you know, the networks that they have, kind of adding on to Ayin's talk about networking, has been so valuable. I mean, like, I was thinking and reflecting yesterday, you know, in preparation for this panel, and I was thinking about probably the most impactful, like, small moment that happened in my time in Peabody was back in February. It was my birthday, and I was really nervous about it because I was like, I'm away from my family, like all of these things. And honestly, it was one of the most special birthdays I've ever had. I had people coming out of their way in the building to come down and wish me a happy birthday and ask me what I was doing and to like send me well wishes and all of these lovely things. And I had mentioned in the chat, Kim knew my name after, and like remembered who I was after literally like a day or two of working at Peabody, and like after a pretty brief interaction on my first day. Like, those are the kinds of people that are around Peabody and make up the Peabody community. I know this question wasn't even about this. Anyways, I'll get to the actual question about like Nashville. I think Nashville is a really unique place in that basically anything that you want to do, you can either do it in Nashville or in a relatively small radius. I mean, there's so much to do in the city. There's so much to do right out of the city. So I know like OSCW, they host like walk and talks and hikes and things around local parks in the area. You know, music and concerts are a huge thing here. Nightlife, you know, if you're interested in the arts, museums, history, like all of these things are in this kind of smallish city, and kind of in those surrounding areas. And then, you know, if you think about, if you just add an hour outside of it, I mean, then you get into Franklin, you've got like the Tennessee Renaissance Fair and vineyards and like all of these things. There's so many things to do in Nashville that make it a really unique and special place. I mean, if you want to find something to do on the weekend, if you're bored on the weekend, you should not be. There are things to do everywhere in Nashville for everyone. And I think that that's been really fun. There are festivals and just all sorts of things that happen in the Nashville community. And so I've really enjoyed my time in Nashville, kind of, I won't say surprisingly, but like, I was kind of worried, you know, like, because I'm not from living in a city, I was kind of worried of what that would be like, but I've been so surprised by all of the fun things that I've gotten to do and the people that I've gotten to meet and connect with in the area from Peabody and then just in Nashville in general. Yeah, I've really enjoyed my time in Nashville for sure.
Thank you, Lydia. Khaled, how about you?
So yes, my favorite place is Goodwill, by the way. Okay. So being in Nashville with no car is difficult. You know, you have to rely on the bus, and for that you mean, you know, if something is accessible by car in 15 minutes, it will take 2 hours in bus. So first, you have to have a lot of time if you are doing that. Secondly, like with work assignments and everything, for the first year, I barely had the time to, do anything else. And now, finally, after being here for a whole year, I have realized how much opportunities there are in Nashville. As Lydia also mentioned, it has something for everybody. If you are someone who likes to party, you can go to Broadway. After my last visit, I'm like, I'm never going there again because I'm just tired of that place. But you can have a good time there. Secondly, it's very close to nature as well. My favorite place here is Red Knoll Lake State Park. It is one of the most beautiful spots to walk, to hike, to just see nature up close. And there are quite a few other similar spots as well. And my goal for this fall is to visit different parks here and see fall in all its glory. So that's what I tell everyone. Like, my friends from New York visited and they're like, we're tired of the city life. I'm like, okay, I'll show you around. So we went to Vineyards, we went to the water park, we went hiking. And so all of these places get you a chance to, be close to the nature, contemplate, and all these things. So Nashville has that. If you want that, it has the peace and the quiet if you're coming from a bigger city. I come from Karachi, which is like a huge city in Pakistan. Secondly, yes, there are quite a lot of festivals, and like some of them are like free as well. There's a Celebrate Nashville thing coming up, which happens every year. It has a variety of food. But apart from that, like as a Vanderbilt student, you get free access to public transport, and that really helps you go around places which you might not visit often. So yes, I believe that Nashville has something for everyone. They're like comedy nights and concerts if you want to do that. So yes, it's a good spot to be in. And what I like the most also is that it's like located in the middle of the East Coast. So like if I have to go to New York, I can take a short flight, and if I go to Miami, I can take a short flight as well. So I like that as well. Like, I'm limited in terms of mobility. I can't drive to Smokies that easily, but there are other options as well. And God bless Spirit Airlines for existing. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Colin. Bryant, how about you?
Yeah, so I think my thoughts are going to be all over the place here. Just trying to react to things that have been said, and then also to just give my thoughts. So one of the things that I love about Nashville is that the Black community is so strong here. I mentioned the Black Nashville Assembly, which is a very strong organization that I recommend if you're interested in their work. But then also too, we have the Nashville Black Market, right, which meets on the first Friday of every month. It's Black people who own their own businesses, whether it's food, whether it's clothes, whether it's jewelry. Like, there's so many different businesses, and they all congregate in the same place, in the same community, the first Friday of every month. And it's amazing. Like, it's a blast. Like, they have music, they have DJs, they have all kind of amazing stuff. Like, and there are, I would assume there are communities like that, all across Nashville for whatever your interests are. In terms of restaurants, one of my favorite restaurants is a place called Golden Bowl, which is located in Smyrna, Tennessee. So it's outside, like basically it's in the suburbs of Nashville. But if you can make your way over there, it's a Mongolian grill where they prepare your food in front of you, and for like a price that's like, basically a Chipotle bowl. You can stack your bowl sky high with whatever you want, and they'll just make it for you. Like, you have the meats, the veggies, it's all fresh, like it's all cooked right there in front of you. And like, if you're in Smyrna for lunchtime, like I don't think you do much better for lunch than that, because it's healthy, it's great. Another thing that I really like about Nashville and being a part of this community is the National Museum of African American Music. It's a great museum. Like, it's something that means something to the entire country, if not the entire world. And Vanderbilt students get to go there completely free. So all you do is you show up, you show them your ID, and you get to tour the museum absolutely free. Another thing that I want to say here, one of my biggest worries about Nashville as I was expecting, you know, with it being a red state and everything, that Nashville would be like super, super racist, right? And that's actually not the case. I mean, it definitely, as a city, it has its challenges, but institutionally, you know, there are some things that can be done better. But if you were like me, you had the fear that you know, any given night, you know, you could have some really bad racial event go down. Like, Nashville is not necessarily like that, at least not in my experience. And then the last thing that I wanted to share here, just really quickly, is that Nashville is a great place. Vanderbilt is a great place, but it's not necessarily a panacea. And I say that because I know sometimes I may have come across as like, oh, like it's a great place and you get to do all these different things. Whether it's Nashville, whether it's Vanderbilt, whether it's your church, like you're always going to be dealing with human beings. Like you're always going to be dealing with people's personalities, their perceptions of you, of your work, of your community, whether right or wrong. You know, no place is a panacea. And so you're definitely going to run into challenges that may look unique to you or may have not been covered on this call. But I think that overall, like if you're coming to Peabody to get an education because you have a specific goal around education, around justice, I feel like this is a great place to be.
Thank you for sharing that, Brian. And I think you're right, right? Like we have to balance, like, no place is a panacea. We all are facing challenges and are trying to navigate what that looks like. So thank you for sharing that. And Eliza, do you want to round us out, like Nashville?
Yeah, I'll share a couple of quick things. I can speak a bit to the LGBTQ community in Nashville. There are one of the only remaining open lesbian bars is here in Nashville in the country. It's called the Lipstick Lounge. It's such a cool community. That's one of the places that I love to go. And also there's this event. It was started about 10 years ago by a group of queer folks, and it's called QDP, which is Queer Dance Party. It happens all over the city in different locations, once a month. And it's just a really wonderful, beautiful time. Lots of great community. There's also the Pride Festival that happens in June. Lots of really cool businesses and organizations that come forward and support. There's also representatives on the police force, as well as fire department. There's a specific, and those are liaisons to the community. There's an LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce that different businesses can belong to, that are stickers kind of outside safe place zones with the rainbow flag on it. And then also Olivia Hill was just elected to Nashville Council. What was that? Remember, just 2 weeks ago, a week ago? Anyway, just recently, and she's the first open to be elected in the state of Tennessee. So that's a bit of context of just like LGBTQ things that are going on. There's lots more. Yeah, it's a place that is not perfect, but there are pockets of really, really amazing communities here.
Thank you, Eliza. And thanks to all of you guys for really managing the chat so well, because as questions are coming in, people are giving great answers. I see the love for Dr. Milner. I really didn't know about kind of some of these equine programs, though I do see horses around Nashville. So I hope that has been answered. But, you know, I know we're kind of coming to the end of our time, and appreciate all of you guys for throwing your emails in the chat for like our participants to kind of follow up and ask questions. But I'd love to end with just like this idea of what is bringing you joy. What is not necessarily Peabody, but what is joyful for you right now? Lydia, could you start us off? Yeah, you laughing.
I've got two things. I have a serious answer and then I have a silly answer, and I will show you rather than tell you. The fact that my terror from the beginning is resting is bringing me joy. That is max. Anyways, my I think something that I've really been trying to prioritize recently has been my own self-care and protecting my peace and making sure that I'm never prioritizing my school over myself as a human. And sometimes when you get to grad school and you are a high achieving student and you are used to putting 100 to 120% into everything, sometimes it can be challenging to let go. And maybe we're giving 90%, maybe we're giving 85. And still pursuing academic excellence while also resting and being a human and allowing for other things to be in life. Car issues, cleaning, all of these things that we have to deal with. Sometimes it's okay to put academics to the side to deal with things. And so I think I've been really trying to prioritize and do things that make me happy in terms of like painting and stretching and meditation and things like that really bring me a lot of joy and allow me to rest, and making sure that I'm really taking time and space to do those things as opposed to just constantly working on schoolwork, because that's not a healthy work-life balance. And so I'm really trying to prioritize that and doing some fun activities that give me a lot of joy and energy, like playing with cats when they're not sleeping, and all of those things, or when you're not on a Zoom panel. So, making sure that I have time to do fun things and things that are recharging and filling my own cup, so then I can go out and serve students and do things for my job and for my schoolwork as well. That was a very long-winded answer, but
it was great. It brought me joy just to hear that. So thank you.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Khaled.
So, yes, finding joy in a busy schedule sometimes, I really echo the sentiments Lydia talked about, self-care and putting yourself first, making time for yourself to, just reconnect with your own self. So this semester, I have, decided to really use the rec center facilities which are there for the students. And I try to go there at least once or twice a week to play pickleball and, just to have a good time with my friends. Because like for the first year, I was like so busy that I was not taking full, opportunities that exist at Vanderbilt campus. So that's something I'm looking forward to doing outdoor activities more, playing pickleball or racquetball, these things. And secondly, I'm also looking forward to going on hikes over the entire fall season. So these are the two things I really want to make time for. Being intentional about it is something on my radar, and even thinking about this is giving me a lot of joy.
I keep wanting to start pickleball because I love the word pickleball, but I'm just not athletically inclined at all. Bryant.
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier, but just like finding my community of gamers / PhD students and seeking or pursuing the passion, or excuse me, what we're passionate about, what we're good at, and what we can make money doing. I've actually spent the better part of this month like preparing for a grant that I was actually trying to go for with our video game project. It was a $113,000 grant. I wrote the proposal, wrote the project narrative, put so many things together, and then like the day before it was due, I found out from my advisor who was writing a recommendation letter, and project a person in the Peabody Research Office, that I'm not eligible because I don't have my PhD yet. And so like that was really like, but at the end of the day, I spoke to the folks who wrote recommendation letters for me. I spoke to the guys who I play games with and we work on the project with, and they were like, it's good. Like, we still have the material, we still have the writing, like we'll apply for future grants, we'll apply for future fellowships. And like just having that like built-in bounce back mechanism, like because I'm not just doing this by myself, like I'm doing this with a community of people who care about the same things I care about and have the same kind of goals and dreams in life. It was like, yeah, okay, I just spent this month doing something that I won't be able to submit for, but you know what? There's things down the road. I have something to look forward to, I have something to hope in. So yeah, that really brought me joy, like just having that community and having that shared, yeah, shared goal.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Eliza.
I love it when you speak, Brant. Man, it's just, oh, okay, mine's really silly. I have to read a lot for the EDD, but somehow I still find time to listen or read romance novels. And they're so good. Like, it is just such a good escape. There's a group that meets at Parnassus bookstore now of just all these people that like romance novels. I might go. Anyway, that's what brings me joy right now.
Is there a title you want to share, Eliza?
A million. But right now it's actually my first fan fiction romance novel that I ever read. It's called Manacle. And it's fan fiction from Harry Potter. Highly recommend.
Love it. Thank you. Ayin, that's, I love hearing these stories because it's bringing me such joy. Thank you. Thank you.
I concur, and I was on mute, so you all did not hear my giggle. Manacle, love it. I echo everything that everyone has said. I had happy hour with Ashley, who's Bryant's wife, and having like pockets of girl time is my jam. And I am a girl's girl. I love sister circles, and so finding sisters and other women and femme folk to spend time with is like particularly nourishing for me. Also, the scenery in Nashville is so beautiful because it's so rich and lush. So I'm enjoying fall and just sitting outside on my balcony, sipping some tea, flipping through my books, writing in my journal, being in nature. And I've also just gotten on the conference train and the poster presentations, and that's such a new journey for me. And although stressful, it's a good stress. I get to nerd out and explore those networks of professionals and intellectuals and really build out what I came here to do, which is help to develop theories and frameworks that will help oppressed and marginalized people get free with a concentration on Black folk. So really being able to step in that is so enriching. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Do not take it lightly or for granted at all. And so I look forward to connecting with you all. If you do choose to come over to Peabody and Vanderbilt, I will be here with my fabulous hair, ready to welcome you, say hey, howdy, and do this education journey together. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And it is fabulous here. So thank you for sharing it with us. And thank you to all of our panelists so much for sharing your experiences, being so real and authentic, being willing to connect. I so appreciate each of you. And with that, I really am excited to introduce our final speaker for the afternoon, our Senior Associate Dean, Sharon Shields. Sharon is just such a dear friend and mentor to so many of us here, as well as kind of a fierce and lifelong advocate and ally for equity and inclusion, both at Peabody and just around the Nashville community. So with that, I'm so excited to turn it over to Senior Associate Dean Sharon Shields.
Well, good afternoon. Can you all hear me all right? Okay. I really love that you ended the panel with joy. And I want to start this with one quote for all of you. And that is that, making a difference in the world and finding your place is where we can find our greatest joy in meeting one of the world's greatest needs. And I hope that as you have heard this afternoon and this morning about the Peabody difference, about all the ways that Peabody College embraces equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I know that this morning when you were welcomed, that many people talked about the Peabody difference. They talked about the culture here. And I want to just say that honestly, 50 years ago, I was sitting where many of you are now. I came to Peabody College to study for my PhD, and in 1976, I went on the faculty. And I have found Peabody to not only be my academic home, but also to be a home where I can thrive, where I can be myself, where I can interact with individuals that bring so much difference, but yet commonalities together too. And so when we talk about the Peabody difference, I wanted to share with you a few things that I think is the Peabody difference. And I think you're going to be a little interested in what I put first in this. And that is that we continually strive for a student-centered culture. I want you to think about that. We are here for you. And we also strive for teaching excellence that is synergistically combined with national and international research and scholarship prominence. We do honor innovation and problem solving. We are a place that deeply cares about, as the dean said this morning, the human condition and society. And we are guided to become agents of change, to improve upon those conditions. So as you think about your next step, I want you to think about how you are going to train to be absolutely the best that you can be in becoming that agent of change in an area that you're passionate about and that brings you great joy. I will tell you that apathy is not a part of our cultural language. Well, I say that because we are always striving to grow. If you look at Vanderbilt's tagline now, it's Dare to Grow. And we want to grow wonderful agents of change. We want to grow you into that. And we want to grow you in a way that really lets you have voice in our society. We strive to create a culture of compassion, empowerment, and collegiality that unlocks creativity and meaning in our endeavors. We invest deeply in the human connection. I think that you have realized today that this is not just about your head and coming here to achieve academically, but to be holistic in your growth and to know that we revere the power of presence. I watch in our offices many times the power of presence with our students, whether it's through the EDI office or OSCW or academic affairs or admissions. Any of the offices are with Dean Mansell Marcelli. And I just think that that presence, and some of the students have talked about the guidance and the support that they have gotten. We are known for our presence with students. We know that there are many distractions that can override our sense of being with others, but we do continually strive to be present in the classroom, in the research lab, in our conversations, in our care for one another, whether it's for colleagues or for students, in our discernment of where we need to deeply explore issues in the world. We continually strive to build a sense of community that is centered around fairness and justice. And I hope that this has come across to you today. Our college truly values inclusivity, transparency, giving voice to all, and the courage to provide challenge and rigor to develop the highest level of self-actualization for each person in our midst. We do promote a courageous culture, one in which bold ideas can be presented, where we can have conversations about hard things in a wise and compassionate way. I think that we are a place that promotes confidence, courage, as well as peace of mind, and strives to remove the power of fear that can be found in many organizations. We constantly endeavor to work for the common good. We value ethical standards of conduct among all constituents in our community, and we nurture trust. I will say to you that we acknowledge our history as a college, flaws and all. I know that many people have said to you today that we are not perfect, but we have learned from our ancestors, our academic ancestors, and we continually make strides to right wrongs and build upon the strength of those academic ancestors. If you make a choice to come to Peabody College, I hope that you will go on one of my history tours with me, a historic tour, because I think you will learn about the growth of this college and this place towards equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I would also say to you that we are a community of soulful sojourners in a world that needs our intellect, our caring, and our compassionate hearts, our reciprocity of respect, and our actions to improve that human condition. For over 200 years, Peabody College has been the North Star, locally, nationally, and globally. It is because of people like you who come and join our community that we can be that North Star, because we need you. We want you to be here. I hope that you will accept our invitation. It was the best decision I ever made 50 years ago to accept the decision to come to Peabody College. Please come and join us in a vibrant, inclusive, diverse community, and join us at the table of learning. Well,
Thank you so much, Dean Shields. We so much appreciate you closing us out today. And as Dean Shields mentioned, we really hope today has helped you make some of those choices about why you might choose Peabody. But we realized that we didn't get to all of the questions, and hope that you do join us for our fall preview week, which is October 9th through 13th, to learn a little bit more about all of our offices, about the different programs that are being offered. Also that you can always reach out to both Kim and I. A lot of different people have offered their email, so I do hope you reach out to some of our faculty and students who have shared. Kim, I don't know if you would like to share anything else at this point.
I would just like to say thank you so much for making the time to be here. I know schedules are busy. I know people are here from literally all over the world. I really love this event. It was so much fun. It's a lot of work to put it together, but now I am so excited that I don't know, maybe I have to go run or something. But thank you for being here. I am super easy to find. My email I put it in the chat, but you can find me on the website. Please do not be shy to reach out. I am very casual, very approachable. And I would just love to see you get in touch with me. And I hope that today was valuable information for you, and that you apply to Peabody College and we get to interact again soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.